Kongversation.
A helicopter full of assault rifle wielding apes just shot at me. My turducken shark / puma has been murdered, and I washed up on this mysterious beach. What wacky misadventures will I get up to here during this season?
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation, and welcome to Season 6. We've crossed the half-decade mark of this damned show. Or as Marshall Leslie, one of our Facebook readers, has referred to it, 2018. And I think that might be an apropos term that we're going to have to adopt.
What
because,
about
yeah. So if you're a new listener, you may only know my co-host this week as the Cartoon Gamer from his own YouTube channel and his frequent work with Did You Know Gaming on YouTube. However, if you're a longtime Kongversation listener, you'll know him as Malik.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's great to be back.
All right, Malik, thank you so much for being here on our season premiere, nonetheless.
What
you
a
must feel
mind-blowing.
very, very special. I'm sure you wrote home about this one.
Oh yeah, definitely, actually. Like, I've been saying that to all my friends. Like, guys, I'm gonna be on, like, the season opener of this really cool podcast. You gotta take a listen to it.
Because it really matters that we have a season premiere when our last episode was, like, 2.5 weeks ago. That there is a real huge distinction between what you heard at the end of season 5 and what you're hearing now. We've really crossed the threshold, and I think you're going to hear a much more quality production.
Yes, I think so too. I mean, you got some new equipment. I'm sure you want to tell them about it.
Yes. So a couple big developments in my life. One, I am now recording this on a brand new microphone. I got a whole new professional setup, including a pop screen. So, I am notorious for popping my peas. I did it all 5 seasons of the Kongversation thus far. But now I can talk about Mr. Pants all night long, and there will be no audio distortion. So I really feel like this is going to finally allow us to do just as many episodes about that much beloved Game Boy Advance puzzle game that I think maybe 20 people have played it now. But whatever, it's really going to, I think, increase our subscriptions on iTunes and SoundCloud and what have you. Now, we all heard a nuclear holocaust at the end of the last season, but I just want to clarify, like Hawaii and Japan this week, it turns out that too was a false alarm. Now, the sound you heard was me having some intestinal discomfort yet again. This time, Putin hacked my bowels. He replaced my almond milk with the secretions of a nursing Russian brown bear. So, I really wish that guy would stop messing with DK Vine. It's getting a little old at this point, Vlad. But, incidentally, there is a huge plot twist for the Kongversation, and I feel like everybody should be sitting down if they're not already. So, for the past several seasons, I've regaled you with tales of my IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. And come to find out, I don't have IBS at all. I'm actually just lactose intolerant. This is the true story. So, yeah, I don't have irritable bowel syndrome. I am lactose intolerant. So, it turns out the most disgusting part of my pineapple pizza was, in fact, the cheese all along. So,
it's always the cheese.
It's the cheese. So, expect lots more updates on the workings of my bowels and my bowel movements throughout this season of the Kongversation, because I really feel like that's going to be important for your enjoyment of Rare and Donkey Kong games.
I can't wait for that, personally.
Yeah, and I am drinking an Angry Orchard, which, thankfully, to my relief, is lactose-free, dairy-free, Angry Orchard, hard cider, and nothing like the first Angry Orchard of the season. It tastes a whole lot like the last Angry Orchard of the previous season. So, now, this is going to be an insane year for the Kongversation, for DK Vine, and for the entire Rare, Playtonic, and Donkey Kong Country fan community. We already knew that was going to be the case as we were heading into it, because we've got Rare's biggest game ever coming out in Sea of Thieves, and that's coming out March 20th. I mean, we're almost 2 months away. Its closed beta is starting next week, and the NDA is finally being lifted, which means that anybody, but in my very narrow mind, us at DK Vine, will be able to not only talk about it, but we can stream it as well. So we're going to be doing Sea of Thieves streams. Going to have to figure that out really, really quickly. But another thing, this is an idea that Cameron had, and I love it, and we're going to do it. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's going to be done at some point this season, probably when the game officially launches. We're going to do a Kongversation podcast inside the world of Sea of Thieves. We are going to be playing Sea of Thieves and doing a podcast simultaneously. So that should be interesting. Whoa. And that's going to be a nightmare, I'm sure. But I'm all for raising the bar of podcasting. I feel like this format has been around for about a decade now, and it's grown stagnant. And I want to revolutionize it by pretending to be a pirate who throws up when he drinks. And I feel like we can really, really finally get that Webby and various other podcasting awards if we just continually innovate like that. Look at me, I sound like Miyamoto. What has happened to me? Oh, old age sneaks up on us all, I suppose. So anyway,
just don't go into your garden.
I know. Luckily, I'm too poor to have a garden. So we've got Sea of Thieves coming out, just 2 months. Closed beta starting next week, but more on that later. Now we've also got Playtonic, who they're entering their first year post Ukulele's release, and we're coming right off of that game's Switch version coming out as well at the end of last year. And rest assured, we'll also be talking about the Switch version of Yooka-Laylee on an upcoming episode of The Kongversation. So, we don't know what Playtonic's up to, be it a new game or Yuka DLC, but it's still going to be very exciting to watch them. It's kind of a blank slate at this point, so I'm looking forward to seeing what Playtonic has next. But speaking of blank slates, so that's exactly what Donkey Kong was coming into 2018. Mm-hmm. And so a few weeks ago, Malik, myself, Joe, and Cameron, we all sat down. We did our New Year's forecast episode of The Kongversation. And, I touched upon the possibilities of Donkey Kong this year with Joe. And we didn't have to wait too long to find out what was coming or some of what was coming, because on this episode of The Kongversation, we'll be discussing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch. It's a reality.
It's too good to be true. Sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, that's why we're going to have to delay talking about it for probably 10 minutes while we let it sink in. Because first, we got to get some due diligence.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so due diligence. Now, please think about supporting DK Vine on Patreon. Not only do your generous contributions help fund our nonsense, and keep in mind that no matter how hard we shill for these games or how excited we get about this just virginal bullshit, we are not affiliated in any way with Rare, Playtonic, or Nintendo, besides harassing them on social media and occasionally being fake paid actors for them. But fake paid actors, because we don't actually get paid. So, I had to throw that in just once. Give it our new Kongversation artwork for this year.
Password Diddy. Yeah.
No, we're doing this as a labor of love, but we're also trying to grow DK Vine into something kind of self-sustaining. And, when you support us on Patreon, you help us achieve just that. And not only are you making an investment towards your future entertainment, and I'm going to put entertainment in scare quotes there because entertainment, but we'll try to give back to you instantly with our reward tiers. So you just give $1 a month. $1 a month, that's nothing on Patreon. And Patreon almost made it nothing, literally, until they overrode their terrible decision making near the end of 2017, where they were going to penalize those with like mostly $1 contributions. But you don't have to worry about that. They backtracked on that.
At least someone's listening to us.
Exactly. So $1. We have a lot of patrons who just give $1 a month, but that gives you DK Vine stickers. Yes, that's right, DK Vine stickers. And we'll have 4 new exclusive stickers rolling out this February, and all existing patrons will get theirs sent to them then. So even if you've been a patron with us since the beginning, or you just signed up this week, not only do you get this year or last year's stickers, 2017, but in February, you'll get the 2018 stickers. Stick with us. Every February, you'll get the new series of stickers.
I see what you did there. Stick with us.
Oh, I didn't. I wasn't intending to do anything. Any cleverness is the Angry Orchard subconsciously controlling my actions. It's not me. So... Sure. We've already selected the 3 characters that are going to be on our 2018 Patreon stickers, and I think they're very appropriate for this year. And I'll let you at home try to figure out which ones we could possibly mean. $2 and up gives you early access to Kongversation episodes and YouTube videos. $5 and up lets you listen in on the Kongversation live stream as we record. Hey, say hi everybody in a live stream. Hi everybody.
Hi everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, so not only do you listen to us as we record this, warts and all of the hilarious technical difficulties, you get to hear me farting after I try to drink a glass of milk. It's a laugh riot. But you also get to engage with us in real time. I'm sure you've probably heard on past conversations where we take things to the live stream chat. We raise comments and questions that were brought up there. So not only do you get to listen in like a filthy voyeur, but you also get to influence the episode directly. So think of it like calling the DK Vine hotline, but not actually having to leave a message and getting to manipulate us in real time. It's fantastic. And $10 and up gives you a bumper sticker, and all previous sticker sets, while $25 and up gives you access to the DK Vine Inner Circle, which is now a Discord chat where the Vine staff and I shoot the breeze with everybody in there, and we also give you some sneak peeks of DK Vine projects, which includes our upcoming site redesign. Ooh. So that's dkvine.com/Patreon. Seriously, it means so much to me that you guys who back us for just $1 a month on Patreon have stuck with us. It's enabled us to really, I think, build a foundation that's going to start paying off in dividends in 2018. So I'm really excited about this year. I'm kind of pumped. For DK Vine, for the Donkey Kong universe, for the Rare fan community, it's going to be an amazing year. And I'm sorry if that optimism turns off longtime DK Vine members who fell in love with us because of the cynicism, because of the negativity. I apologize. I'll try to be cynical about something, rest assured. I will find some aspect of some game that I absolutely hate, and I'll harp upon it endlessly just to give you your fix. I think last season it was probably the snowplow and ukulele before they patched it. And now they've patched it, and I can't really complain about it, but I'll still complain about it if it helps you bitter assholes cling on to that lovely feeling of hate that used to flow through us. So dkvine.com/Patreon. Wait. Am I to understand that you, the Cartoon Gamer now have a Patreon as well?
Yeah, actually, I do have a Patreon for, my YouTube channel, obviously. But, yeah, if you guys want to check out what I have on my Patreon, it is simply the Cartoon Gamer, and you actually pledged to me, Hyle, and I'm really humbled about that.
DK Vine pledged to you. We, as a faceless corporation, pledged to you. Think of it like a political donation. When you run for prime minister or whatever, then we will have an in with you. We will have planted the seeds for some serious political corruption up there in Canada.
Well, even I've never felt so touched by a faceless corporation. I'll say that much.
Yeah, DK Vine Co. Yeah, we are heartless and sterile. So
I will remember you guys when I one day run the Great White North.
Hey, that would have been a great segue into Tropical Freeze, but we're not done with due diligence.
Crap.
So, subscribe to DK Vine on YouTube at dkvine.com/YouTube. Follow us on social media, dkvine.com/Facebook and dkvine.com/Twitter. Those are both updated daily, much to the detriment of my health. And we don't have a social media like guru or a team of social media gurus like the big guys do. So it's mostly, like, I say mostly, for the last like better part of the year, I've been doing both Facebook and Twitter every day. So and I am OCD enough that I have to do it every day, and I have regular Facebook posts that I do on a weekly basis, as well as some surprise ones. And Twitter's also same day. Now you got the in-depth writings on the Facebook page about the Donkey Kong universe, and then you've got my inane stream of consciousness on the Twitter. So anyway, it's this great slice of this nonsense directly into your social media feeds. Even if you're not somebody who likes social media like me, I loathe it. I barely use my own personal Facebook account, but I like to provide a little treat for those of you who have to have social media as part of your jobs, or just to be, I guess, socially, culturally relevant. So yeah, you're gonna have to see all of this BS about your relatives' political beliefs, or their newborn babies, or their adorable pets. But you know what? You're also going to get some damn Donkey Kong in there. So that's the service we provide. We take the miserable, cold world that we live on, and we add a gorilla with a tie who, for some reason, was designed to have a fantastic ass. And that's DK Vine. If we can deliver that to you, because we know Nintendo, you know, they haven't always been the best about delivering that to the fans. They ignore the guy. Maybe not so much anymore. More on that later. Mm-hmm. But and then, you know, we've got all those forgotten rare characters that we love, from Banjo, Conker. Obviously, not all the characters are forgotten, but you know, you're not going to find anybody else talking about Boggy's children in the Facebook. You will with us. So finally, for more in-depth discussions with like-minded weirdos, check out the DK Vine forum at dkvine.com/forum. I know message boards are kind of a vestige of the past, but we'll always have the forum on DK Vine, and you know, I think it's a great way to step into this larger world of rare fandom. If you just discovered the Kongversation, if you just discovered the vibrant online rare platonic Donkey Kong fan community, then it really is a good way to kind of get your feet grounded in that world. And, you know, all of our staffers right now got their start on DK Vine by becoming members of the forum. So it's just a good way to kind of get to know everybody and kind of, I don't know, prove your mettle as a writer, if that's what you want to do. If you ever want to write for us, join the forum. Of course, I almost forgot. Help us get Fabio as a guest on the Kongversation. And don't forget to hashtag bring back the spiders.
Whatever that means.
That's enough due diligence. Had to get it out because it's first episode of the year. You know, we get lax about it near the end of the season during the holidays. Just I don't. Let's just get through this episode. We got it's a 3-part spotlight about whatever anniversary we've got going on. No. So we've been lax about it, so we had to get it out. Thank you for indulging us. All right, Malik, you're here to talk about Tropical Freeze for the Switch. I'm here to talk about Tropical Freeze for the Switch. The people listening at home are here to listen us talk about Tropical Freeze on the Switch. They might be talking back at us when we forget important details, but I don't know about you, Malik, but one of the periods of time I hate the most as someone who is engaged in this online world of Donkey Kong is when a Nintendo Direct first gets rumored, or when there's been a period of time between Nintendo Directs and people start getting a little antsy.
Yeah.
It creates something like a Pavlovian response in the thousands of Nintendo fans who follow this crap.
We all get rabid.
What? Yeah. So.
Wait, that wasn't a pun.
Was that the Angry Orchard talking through you? Like,
I think so. What was the slogan? Is it in you? Was that Gatorade?
Yeah, I think that's Gatorade.
It's in me now.
Wow, this is magic hard cider from a magic tree. Well, I mean, all the trees on the bottles have like faces on it, like the Ku tree from off of Zelda. So yeah, it's magic.
Sure.
So no, but it creates this kind of like mindless
frothing at the
pandemonium.
mouth.
Yeah. So yeah, I said Pavlov. So yeah, frothing at the mouth. So what this opens up is hoax after hoax after hoax, where people, and I don't know why, I think this really started around the time, probably Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I don't know when hoaxing Nintendo reveals became a thing, but it definitely took off in the Direct era. And people just try to trick each other about, there's going to be... Not only do they try to trick each other about what's going to be revealed in the next inevitable Nintendo Direct, but they try to trick each other about when a Nintendo Direct is, and it makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, I got you. You thought there was going to be Nintendo Direct on Tuesday, and you believed it, and now you're disappointed.
It's like a little mini E3, but you never know when it's coming, and everybody just keeps speculating and lying and just like you said, you keep tricking each other into thinking that this is going to be there when we have sometimes we have like clues and hints, but most of the time we have like no basis on what we're going to see. So I never get into all that stuff because it's like, man, I will get into it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Right, and especially since Nintendo they've been really terrible about announcing Directs too far in advance.
Yeah.
And I like when I have a heads up. Like, I like when I know a week out that a Nintendo Direct is coming, because then I can plan my life accordingly around it. As somebody who does follow this kind of stuff as a potential living, I need to be there for a Nintendo Direct, because you never know when something Donkey Kong related is going to be coming our way. So
yeah, and what the magnitude of the situation will be.
Yeah, so granted, I mean, 98% of all Nintendo Directs seem to be, here's some anime style RPGs we're bringing over from Japan. Here's your new Fire Emblem game of this quarter.
Here's Kirby. Here's Pokemon, Mario.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to throw in something about Animal Crossing. It's not going to be an Animal Crossing game people want, but it's going to have the characters. It seems like it's always the same thing again and again and again. And eventually, as a fan of, Donkey Kong, as far as Nintendo IPs go, has had much better luck than most. We are not F-Zero. We are not the myriad of Nintendo franchises that have been forgotten about, sans for their one playable representative in Smash Brothers. But it does feel like we are kind of stuck in the middle sometimes between the two extremes, and that still creates the kind of bitterness. It allows for bitterness because the sense of futility hasn't kicked in like it has for F-Zero fans. There's no F-Zero fans watching a Nintendo Direct saying, this is going to be our month. This is going to finally happen for us. No, they've given up.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong fans, we've gotten enough. We've gotten a a main game for every Nintendo console since the Super Nintendo. So we never get to the point where we can give up. So, and I never want to get to that point, but I think that does kind of explain why we continually get slightly bitter. And then that bitterness subsides almost instantly. Like, seriously, I forget about a Nintendo Direct that has nothing for me in it as quickly as I take a shower. Like, it's just down the drain. It's in the past. Mm-hmm. But it does kind of make me not look forward to them at the same time, because it's like, oh, I don't want to have to sit there for 40 minutes and just kind of be held prisoner about all these games that, no offense to anybody who's really looking forward to them, but I have very, very specific taste. I manage DK Vine. I mean, I'm doing this because I'm a Rare fan, and because I'm a Rare fan, I'm a fan of Rare's iteration of the Donkey Kong characters. So yeah, I have a very limited window of things that I look for in the Nintendo Venn diagram. So, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
That being said, I would love to know when they're coming, and it gets a little. You start drowning out the rumors over time because it's just nonsense. The only good thing that came from this whole period of speculation and hoaxes and rumors was somebody created an image of fake, like, Nintendo Direct announcements. And, you know, most of them seemed like they could be fairly plausible. Like, you had the Donkey Kong Country Collection coming for the Switch. But then you had, like, Yoshi commits tax fraud. And so you knew it was bullshit, and it was a hilarious joke, and you laughed, and it was like, okay, this is what this should be. This is the kind of stuff Hyle of DK Vine appreciate above all else. Humor that isn't at the expense of anybody. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there were a bunch of rumors, and I know there were rumors the night before this Direct came out, like the Wednesday night before last Thursday. Malik, did they actually ever announce this Direct, or did I just completely miss it?
So the lead up to this Direct was really, really weird, because apparently, like, I think some video game, I think it was either like GameSpot or GameStop or whatever, they were talking about how, like, there was a Nintendo Direct coming soon, and then they immediately retracted their tweet saying, like, don't pay attention to us, and then people started, like, freaking out about it, and then Nintendo does a thing, like, they post on their Twitter, and they show, like, the little bird in Mario Odyssey just with the text that says, "I've got a secret," and nobody knows it, and everyone is starting to freak out about what the heck is going on, and then, like, 2 days before the Direct, or maybe 1 day before, they just upload a picture on their Twitter of Chibi Robo on fire. And I don't know. I was really confused, but really everyone was like, "Oh yeah, man, they're doing a Nintendo Direct," but they did not formally announce it. It wasn't until like 9 a.m. on the day, like when they showed it, my brother told me, it's like, "Yo, Malik, they're doing a Direct." Like, what? They didn't announce this thing. They had no formal announcement, but I guess that they knew that everybody knew that a Direct was coming, which is weird. I've never seen a company just like, that's like if Nintendo didn't announce that they were doing an E3 thing, you know? Like, in advance.
Yeah, or they didn't tell you when E3 was, and they just, like, randomly did a flash mob in the LA Convention Center, like, sometime midsummer, and then, like, everybody had to, like, scramble and get the next plane out there, and it was just...
It's like, yeah, you know when it is. I don't... Let's not even bother. Just hurry up.
Yeah, so... I obviously wasn't brilliant enough to suss out from the flaming Chibi Robo meme that the Nintendo Direct was going to be Thursday morning. But no, it does create this kind of noxious feedback loop where Nintendo starts trolling people on social media, and then that just eggs them on more to create more false innuendos and outright lies, and then Nintendo just gets... And it's just like, stop! Just tell me what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
There is no need for, like, yeah, you're enjoying it. I'm glad. And maybe people get off on it. Maybe it's fun for them. But look, I'm somebody who wants to, like, I am too busy planning, like, the next 3 videos DK Vine is doing. And if I'm going to be throwing a curveball, like new game announcements, that could potentially just disrupt everything I'm working on. So I want to know in advance, Nintendo, please. And also, I want to know when I need to be home to watch a Nintendo Direct. So,
Exactly.
yeah, a Nintendo Direct Mini appeared, like, out of the blue Thursday morning. And the only reason I knew about it, I was out and about at that time. And I knew because the DK Vine Twitter account suddenly started exploding in notifications. Like, I started being tagged and shit. And I was like, something has happened. Either Rare headquarters has burned to the ground, or they've announced something Donkey Kong related, because there's no reason for this. So, so I checked my phone and I see, like,
attack.
Yeah, through a flurry of, like, half-completed thoughts, I'm able to, like, figure out that, oh, Tropical Freeze was announced for the Switch. Oh, Funky Kong is playable. I guess? I don't really know, because I didn't watch the video. I'm only seeing this through, like, sputtered exclamations of surprise and glee, and I'm just like, this is the shittiest way to be part of a reveal of something. Seeing other people, it's like watching one of those YouTube reaction videos that people record. Like, oh, I'm gonna watch the new Star Wars trailer and film a camera on me reacting to it. That's what my Tropical Freeze for the Switch reveal was like, seeing other people react to it. So, needless to say, I just kind of had to turn off my phone and shut it off, drown out the whole notion until I got home. And granted, I sped. I probably ran over some school children, committed multiple homicides. I had to get home, though, and see what the hell was going on with Funky Kong. So, so Malik, you were actually at home when they announced it.
Oh, yeah. Like, I was just about to start getting ready to do some of my Did You Know gaming work and whatnot. And then, yeah, the Nintendo Direct just shows up out of nowhere. I drop everything, and then we're just watching the Direct, and then Tropical Freeze gets announced, and then when they show the trailer, like, I noticed, like, I figured that DK would pop out of the airplane, and then Funky Kong comes out. I was like, if I had a drink, I would have spit it out right there. It's like, no, what?
That would have been a great. That would have been a great The Cartoon Gamer reacts to Nintendo Direct Mini video on YouTube. Just use every 5 seconds, you just taking a sip of water and spitting it out, doing a spray effect.
It would have been great. It would have been like Ellie the Elephant.
Yeah. So
let me just drink like 5 liters of water and then just wait and see what happens.
If it was going to be like Ellie the Elephant, you could also, like, sniff really hard to bring the glass closer to you.
And the ringing, the ringing of, like, the bar, that's just my brain just dying on me. Beep, 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 beep. Stop.
So there were actually three relevant reveals for Donkey Kong fans. Donkey Kong had more going for him in this Nintendo Direct Mini than any other Nintendo franchise or character.
Or he's had in, like, the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, we brought this up on the season finale of the Kongversation on New Year's Eve, but Tropical Freeze, the original incarnation, was announced in 2013. Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost been half a decade since the original Tropical Freeze was announced. So that was the last major reveal for Donkey Kong. So, yeah, I mean, the closest I think we got after that was Critters and Smash Run. Yeah. I mean, like there are the succession of Tropical Freeze reveals, like Cranky being shown off at the Spike TV like Game Awards. Rest in peace, Spike TV.
Wait, Spike TV's dead?
Spike TV has become the Paramount network.
What?
So they are no longer the only network for men. Now they are unisex or non-gender specific. So
No way.
yeah.
No.
So I will miss the multitude of dude bro programming on Spike TV. Miss it in that I won't miss it at all, but I will miss having to scroll past it while I'm looking for something better to watch and kind of shaking my head at the state of the world.
I will miss watching 2 whole days worth of Cops, because that's what men want to do. Just sit there and watch the same show all day, all week long.
Yeah. I mean, they did have like Star Trek: The Next Generation marathons, which kind of flew in their face of like their like ultra testosterone machismo kind of.
So here's some Star Trek for all you men.
Yeah. with Jean-Luc motherfucking Picard, yeah!
Beam me up, Scotty!
He drinks tea, yeah!
Watch William Shatner do his crazy acting. Isn't that just masculine?
Well, I could see Kirk as being the overly masculine kind of Star Trek captain of Spike TV, but Picard, I mean, anyway, Picard was refined. Picard was well read. He was articulate, and I've just pissed off some Star Trek nerds who are like, "How dare you say Kirk isn't refined?"
Yeah.
Do you know how long it takes? Do you know how much skill and education it takes to weave that toupee into his hair?
It's a toupee. It's not real.
William Shatner is as bald as I don't know. Pick a bald guy here. I don't know.
William Shatner is as bald as Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest one you could hit. Yeah. No. William Shatner's been bald since the 60s. I mean, since the early 60s.
Man, where have I been?
Yeah. There's a great website about Shatner's toupee and the way it's evolved over the years. I'd recommend Googling it.
There's also the last thing about Shatner's toupee, there's also a good Robot Chicken sketch where his toupee is like a Batman by night, and then he gets all these awards in the day, and Shatner's just like, where do these things keep coming from?
So you did know that Shatner was bald through...
I just figured it just clicked into my head like, wait,
okay, all right.
It all makes sense now. Anyways.
Yeah. So 3 Donkey Kong reveals, and they were basically of increasing magnitude. So first... Keep in mind, we are not going to be going in depth with the first 2 on this episode. We will do these for future episodes. Right now, this is about Tropical Freeze for the Switch, but I feel like we should mention them because they did happen, and they happened while the Kongversation was on its mid-season hiatus, so we didn't get to do a mini about it or anything. So Camelot, beloved cameo game developer Camelot.
Once upon a time.
They're getting a chance at redemption here. So the abysmally rushed Mario Tennis Ultra Smash for the Wii U, which that came out 2015? Yeah, holiday 2015 as kind of a placeholder because Zelda was delayed until the Switch, and Nintendo had no games to release for the holiday, and the only game they could plausibly get out was this Mario Tennis game that Camelot was developing for the Wii U, and Camelot, as far as I can tell, was in no way near completed with this. But Nintendo's like, does the tennis mechanic work? Like, does it play as a tennis game? All right, release it. It's done. We got to get it out. And if anybody has followed Camelot games as much as we have, they'll know that Camelot has always strived for a higher degree of quality than your normal Mario sports titles, than your normal cameo games. There's a reason why they still do this 19 years after Mario Golf, or 18 plus years after Mario Golf for the N64. Like, they are just amazing at what they do. And not only are they amazing at what they do, but they also have a clear affinity and love for Donkey Kong in his world as well. So they were the first ones to use Diddy post Rare buyout. They were the ones to just like do amazing things like the Congo Canopy Golf Course in Toadstool Tour, or the most recent Donkey Kong course that's heavily based on elements from the Donkey Kong Country series. And they've just created some really fun games, really fun golf and tennis games. So to have this bare bones piece of garbage come out produced by Camelot, and it was just so disheartening. Yeah. So I really get the sense that Mario Tennis Aces for the Switch is both Nintendo's apology to them for making them do that, and their apology to us for having to bear with that. So Mario Tennis Aces already looks far superior to Ultra Smash. And we know Donkey Kong is going to be in it. We haven't seen much in a way of Donkey Kong, but there's going to be a story mode, which is a first for the console tennis games.
Really?
Obviously they did the
the GameCube one?
No. I mean, there were like kind of gimmicky like side games you could do, but there was no story mode. They did Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance Mario Tennis and golf games that they were basically RPGs. You leveled your characters up. There was all this like insane backstory, and those were just very, very enjoyable, and I have a great fondness. Too many people ignored them because a golf RPG for the Game Boy? No, thank you. But trust me, you don't have to like golf or tennis. I'm not a tennis guy, really, but I really did love, the RPG versions of it. So this isn't an RPG as far as I can tell. You're actually controlling the characters from the Mario and Donkey Kong world, but it's going to have a story mode. It's going to have like a map screen. This is really cool to see them actually making this effort and evolving, much like I want to evolve the art of podcasting this season on the Kongversation. They are evolving the art of cartoony mascot tennis games for Nintendo consoles. So I'm looking forward to Mario Tennis Aces. I must say this will be a purchase for the Switch.
Like when I get a Switch, I'm definitely going to consider it. Like I've always wanted to get into the Mario Tennis games, but I kind of missed the boat with the GameCube and then the Wii and then Wii U. I was thinking of Ultra Smash until I saw that there was nothing for me in it. And I mean, I played a bit of power tennis at like the dentist's office and I had a fun time with that. But yeah, this looks like this is going to be a really worthwhile purchase. I'm sure the game is going to be, from what we've seen so far, I think the game is going to be pretty good.
See, that's weird because I would think Ultra Smash would be the one you would play at the dentist office because it would put you to sleep.
No anesthesia required.
Yeah, man, power tennis, you'd be too jazzed up for that root canal and you'd be wide awake. Look for more discussion on Mario Tennis Aces coming out later this year. I keep wanting to call it Ultra Smash because Ultra Smash sounds like the superior title. Like, Ultra Smash, yeah!
There's
Mario
nothing
Tennis
ultra about that game.
I know. Mario Tennis Aces sounds so, like, just
kind of British.
Low rent. Yeah. It sounds like a Matt Corna catchphrase. Our beloved DK Vine staffer Matt Corna. It sounds like something he would say. Aces.
So Mario Tennis, Aces, or we could just. It just means like Mario Tennis. It's good. We weren't gonna mess up this time.
Yeah. That's their way of telling us. Yeah. No, this Ultra Smash was hot and flaming garbage.
Ultra
this
trash.
The good one.
Ultra Smash is like, ultra trash.
It's like the new Planet of the Apes trilogy where the titles are in the wrong order. Because it starts with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, then it's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and then it's War of the Planet. It's like, you gotta switch some of those around, and that's the way I feel with Ultra Smash and Aces. Anyway, I've said enough about that. Donkey Kong DLC is being added to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
I might just have to pick this game up too.
Yeah, so this is a game we talked about at relative great length, considering it had no Donkey Kong in it last year. So this is obviously the game that Grant Kirkhope composed, which was a huge surprise because Grant Kirkhope doing a Mario game. But
Yeah.
not only does he do the Mario game, but like there is the Rabid Kong character in the game who is not Donkey Kong. He's a
yeah.
rabbit who looks like Donkey Kong. But at E3, they really promoted Rabid Kong as kind of this kind of visual mascot for the game during E3 time. You had the giant rabbit statue when you walked into the convention center. You had this online social media contest where pose the Rabid Kong render in funny picture, whatever. We had it violating Hellmast, classy to the end.
Of course.
And so, yeah, Rabid Kong was like this, I guess, unofficial mascot of the game at E3 time. So we joked last E3, this is an E3 where Donkey Kong has the most representation, yet he doesn't appear once. Because you had New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey, and you had Rabid Kong in Mario Plus Rabbids. Is that actually Mario Plus Rabbids, or is it supposed to be Mario and Rabbids? But I'm saying the plus like a moron.
Well, I think the plus is there, but everywhere I've heard it, they just say Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
I have always marched to the beat of my own DK bongo drums, so I'm going to call it Mario Plus Rabbids, because that is just such a, very, very, obsessively nitpicky thing to do. It's like how I always put 2 exclamation marks after Double Dash. I've got to do it.
It
it's
has
there.
to be done. That's how it's written.
It has to be done. So, except it's really hard to make that game, to put a possessive S after it, because you're like, wait, do I put it before the exclamation marks or after? Either way, it doesn't look right. So,
right.
Anyway, anyway, I know Grant did the Armadillo remix from the boss fight in Donkey Kong 64, and it was just really cool because Donkey Kong 64 music, besides the DK rap, annoyingly enough, is never really represented, because when you hear Donkey Kong music from that era, you hear the David Wise Donkey Kong Country stuff, maybe, Evelyn Fisher's stuff as well, at least from the first Donkey Kong Country game. But yeah, you rarely hear Donkey Kong 64 music, so to have Grant actually get to come back and revisit it and force it into a Nintendo game, even if it's by his own hand, just great. But yet Donkey Kong was not in the game, Malik.
Yeah.
And Ubisoft actually talked about this just a few weeks ago. They actually explained why Donkey Kong himself didn't appear in Mario Plus Rabbids, and it was because they did not want to mix the lore of Donkey Kong with Mario's world too much. Did you hear them say that? Did you hear that statement when it happened?
No, I actually didn't hear about that. That's actually really, what's the word I'm looking for? Profound? Or just, that's
profound
really respectful.
For us. I mean, it's profound for us. For the layman on the street, they wouldn't understand the impact of that. But as people who witnessed the GameCube era into the early Wii era of the Donkey Kong Mario relationship, early last season, we did an episode where we asked, are we on the verge of a full-on merger between Donkey Kong and Mario? Is Donkey Kong about to lose all of his franchise's individual identity? Is it about to be completely enveloped by Mario? And there were all these fears going into Super Mario Odyssey about that. And come to find out, no. They were actually going to be very careful in Super Mario Odyssey about not actually using Donkey Kong characters for the most part. That there was a very clever workaround they did. And yet they still referenced Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Country games out the wazoo, but it was mostly just a whole-on celebration of the franchise, both arcade and country eras, and it was more of a wink and a nod to the shared history and lineage of both the Mario and Donkey Kong franchises without saying they are still one and the same. And the way DK Vine views it, and I think this is the correct way to view it, is both Mario and Donkey Kong Country kind of grew out of the Donkey Kong arcade series, but they shouldn't be considered part of the same franchise anymore. They both grew into something completely different, and they both share that same lineage, but they evolved into completely kind of oil and water kind of franchises, where when you actually try to mix them together, one just kind of floats on top of the other, and there's not a really good way to do it. And yeah, we say, well, what about Mario Kart? What about Mario Tennis? We just talked about Mario Tennis. It's kind of allowed there, but in your mainline games like Super Mario Odyssey or say Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, you can only get away with a wink and a nod, but you can't actually have full-on integration.
Yeah, it would be really weird to see like Mario in a Donkey Kong Country game. Well, save for DKC 2, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like what you said, the whole water and oil thing. Like they did come from like, they do share roots and they do acknowledge it, which is really cool, but they have their own respective series. Like Donkey Kong Country is not an installment in the Mario series, and Mario World is not, or Yoshi's Island is not an installment in the Donkey Kong series.
Exactly. And, you've also got Yoshi and Wario, who kind of have their own series, but it's a little bit more muddled there. With Yoshi, Yoshi has a baby version of Mario and or Luigi running around in most of the games in that series. And even if you remove that element, you've still got Shy Guys running around. You've still got Bowser. It still feels very much like a part of the Mario series with its own style and aesthetics, sure, but it's never been divorced from Mario. And Wario has been for the most part, but the very fact that he is kind of a bizarro evil version of Mario kind of makes it harder to get away from it as well.
I mean, it's kind of like if I'm thinking of like Mickey Mouse, Donald, and Goofy. Like they all have their own respective series, and they always come together. But if you saw like the Scrooge McDuck and like Goof Troop or something, that would be weird.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. And it always comes back to ducks here on the conversation.
Yeah,
we haven't even taken a Memechi call yet. Yeah, we haven't even taken the inevitable Memechi call. I'm sure Memechi, I don't know if Memechi's still in the live stream. He was there.
Well, that would
hello,
suck.
Memechi. Yeah. Quick shout out to all those in the live stream. I see Dustin, DJ Dustin is in there.
Q-Burn.
I see Q-Burn is in there. Many others are in there. They were just the ones talking when I checked in. We'll check in with you guys later.
And the rest.
And the rest, yeah, I'm sure Russell Johnson and Don Wells are in there as well. Even though Russell Johnson, I think, is dead. He died a couple years back. Anyway, yeah, Ubisoft wanting to keep Donkey Kong. Ubisoft. How do you pronounce it? I have this trouble. I always forget.
I think Ubisoft is like the French Canadian way to say it, so I should be saying Ubisoft, but everybody else says Ubisoft.
And I should be saying, okay, Ubi. So wait, what? Okay,
you
never
say
mind.
Ubi, I say Ubi.
Ubi. Okay. Shouldn't you be putting like an O in front of the U too? And then I just anyway.
Ubisoft.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's just stupid. Too stupid.
There seems to be this drive within Nintendo to keep Donkey Kong and Mario separate all of a sudden, and without getting too much into it, I have heard through the grapevine that there is a reason for this. No, not the DK Vine this time, from another grapevine, that there is a reason for this. And that reason is that Nintendo is heavily invested right now into building up the Donkey Kong IP brand and characters as its own entity and not to be just part of the Mario brand. And it's even extending to merchandisers, to those who get like the Super Mario license. Aside from pre-existing contracts, that might not include Donkey Kong anymore. So Like, for example, okay, I just got a Donkey Kong air freshener at Target. And in the past, this would have been branded Super Mario, and then it would have said, like, Donkey Kong underneath that. This is Donkey Kong brand air freshener, put out by, ironically enough, the company Just Funky. So, yeah. So, and this was produced, manufactured, it says in the copyright, 2017. So we are already seeing the first signs of this. There was a Super Mario sticker book that came out at the beginning of this month. And aside from a couple cast photo stickers that Donkey Kong was part of that harken back several years in the past, Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong characters are not in this massive sticker book that otherwise incorporates every single modern Mario character in it. And Donkey Kong is not actually referenced once in the accompanying text. So things are rapidly changing in this regard. And from what I hear, there is a reason for this, that Nintendo wants Donkey Kong to be able to stand on its own. We know the theme park is coming.
Right.
And that in Super Nintendo World, Donkey Kong is going to... I've heard things that he's going to take up 1/3 of the park.
Yes.
So it's definitely a different environment than it was just a couple of years ago. Than it seemed to be at the beginning of last year even. And... There's a good reason for that, and one of the reasons, or at least part of this master plan, as it were, is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for Nintendo Switch. Now, Malik, this is why you're here. You're here to talk about this. So. We got the Rabbids DLC pack. It's going to be Donkey Kong, a Donkey Kong world, and Donkey Kong is a playable character. That's coming out in the spring, and we'll be talking about that on an upcoming conversation. Don't you worry. But on May 4th, still in spring technically, but this is the part of spring where many the lad and lass are starting to look forward to the summer ahead. They're making plans. They're starting to dip their toes in the sand of the beach. And May 4th, also
May the 4th
that
be
really
with you.
that really annoying Star Wars holiday that is now a big corporate event. You want to talk about corporations kind of driving everything into the ground? After Disney bought Star Wars and really embraced the whole May the 4th be with you thing, I got sick of May the 4th be with you. And
yeah, me too. And I'm not even a Star Wars guy.
Well, as one of the people who actually loved The Last Jedi, call in with your hate calls, people, but I loved The Last Jedi. And so Star Wars is on my good side again. But whenever like May the 4th rolls around and it's just, you get all the, here's stormtroopers.
Here's Darth Vader eating ice cream or something.
It's like,
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Darth Vader. You mean the genocidal mass murderer, Darth Vader? Oh yeah, he's such a cuddly corporate mascot.
He enjoys May the 4th as well, and blah blah. I liked it when May the 4th was like this cool little underground thing that all the old Star Wars fans from like the 80s and the 90s were like, dude, you know what day it is? Yeah, it's time to watch like Star Wars on this day and watch all the marathons and the parodies and stuff like that, you know? It's not now it's just this big corporate thing with the big old mouse behind it.
I'm not going to take the red letter media like viewpoint where Star Wars is too corporate now. Star Wars has always sold out from the get-go. Star Wars is sold out. George Lucas sold out. I mean, look at the merchandising. I mean, 1978 when like the merchandise first became available, George Lucas sold out and never looked back. And that's fine. That's always been part of Star Wars. So I can't get on the whole Disney has just turned Star Wars into commercial schlock viewpoint, because at least it's competent commercial schlock now, as opposed to whatever the hell the prequel trilogy was. All right. So anyway, May 4th, we got Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze coming out for the Switch. Now, this it wasn't exactly rumored that this game was coming, but it's been a topic of frequent conversation ever since the Switch came out, and specifically since Mario Kart 8 Deluxe showed that you could just port Wii U games over to the Switch
Like
and
nobody's business.
expose them to a much larger install base and just watch the money roll in with minimal effort. And I remember like questioning this when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out. I was like, why is everybody excited about this? This is literally almost exactly the same game, all the DLC, with just a couple added characters. Like, what is the big deal? People are treating this like it's a brand new Mario Kart game. And I was sat down very politely, and I had it explained to me that, Hyle, nobody bought a Wii U. This is a lot of people's first chance to actually play Mario Kart 8, and something clicked in my brain. Maybe it wasn't instantaneous, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, you know, they're right. Nobody bought a Wii U, and the fact that nobody bought a Wii U besides Nintendo diehards was a big reason why Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, this brilliant 2D platformer that, in my opinion, is the second best of the Donkey Kong Country series. Malik, how do you rank the Donkey Kong Country series? I apologize, you're the guest here, and I'm telling you the order that they're in. Oh, it's the second best, obviously. Where do you see the five main Donkey Kong Country series? We will exclude the like portable remakes. We'll exclude things that use the name but aren't part of the actual series, like Barrel Maze. Where do you view the five pre-existing Donkey Kong Country games?
All right.
And where do you rank them?
Let's see. So that's really hard. It kind of fluctuates. So 3 is number 5. Not saying that 3 is bad or anything, but I mean, when you're stacked up with all the other ones, you know, it's DKC 3. But let's see. Number 4, I would have to say, man, it always changes. I would say DKC 1, even though Donkey Kong Country 1 is like my personal favorite of the trilogy, I will say that DKC 2 is a lot better than DKC 1. So in terms of like, in terms of like how good they are, it's 3, 1, 2, and then when Returns came out, man, I just fell in love with that game. I was 15 when that game was announced, but man, I played all the original Donkey Kong Countries, like DKC 2 and 3 that year, and then Returns just blew away all my expectations. And Tropical Freeze, man, Tropical Freeze is number 1. I know it's missing Animal Buddies and a lot of the old characters and other world-building things and stuff like that, but if it isn't one of the best platformers I have ever played in my life, or just one of the best games I have ever played in my life, just amazing. I have kissed my copy of Tropical Freeze, and I am not ashamed to say that. It is just beautiful.
The box or the
art.
game disc?
The box art. Just
okay, because I was gonna say, when it comes out for the Switch, you might want to refrain from kissing the actual game, because I hear it tastes like terrible. Crap. Yeah.
Man,
maybe. Oh! What if they do? You know, we had the banana yellow colored Donkey Kong Land trilogy and Donkey Kong 64. What if they have a banana flavored Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze?
Well, then people are just gonna eat the cartridges, just straight up eat them, and they're not gonna.
Then they'll have to buy more. Then they'll have to buy. No. What if people develop like this craving for it? Like they eat it once and they're like, I need more. What if they buy like all these copies of Tropical Freeze, put them in a bowl, and just munch on them? Sales would go through the roof.
Like
if
a
they made
banana bunch
flavored
of like Tropical Freeze copies, like a DKC banana bunch. So like 10 copies for each person. They just have the money to do it.
I'm really getting excited. I'm really getting excited about this It's like comic book companies, you know, to make up for flagging sales. They release alternative covers and like chase variants. And you want to get this cover? Well, the comic book shop, you have to order 300 copies of the standard issue, and we'll send you one of these. and that's the way like Marvel still sells comic books. I think DC sells more comic books than Marvel as far as actually just straight up selling books. But Marvel gets more order because of all of these stupid variants. So yeah, just sell like Tropical Freeze by the caseload to people who want to eat it and not play it.
That's a pretty delicious idea you got there. It's foolproof.
Probably pretty toxic too, I'm sure.
Toxical
I'm sure
freeze.
There's gonna be all these people who are like in the emergency room, just like deathly yellow, and they're gonna think it's like an outbreak of like jaundice, but it's actually tropical freeze poisoning.
Well,
So,
if there's one way I'd want to be poisoned, it's by tropical freeze.
you know, I want to innovate the art form of the podcast this season, so want to do it in Sea of Thieves, and I would love to do it on my deathbed while my blood is being poisoned by one of the finest 2D platformers of the last several generations. So, no, personally, like, yeah, I still rank Donkey Kong Country 2 over Tropical Freeze. For me, Country 2 it's such a hard game to beat. It is my complete package. It's everything I look for in a video game from beginning to end, flawless. Perfection. And Tropical Freeze, though, is the one game that's come out since Donkey Kong Country 2, at the very least in the same genre, you know, that had, and particularly the same series, that has given Country 2 a legitimate run for its money, where I'm like, you know, Country 2 is my favorite, and I do consider it the best, but, you know, Tropical Freeze does do this better, and does do that better, and has this over that. So it's close, but yeah, Tropical Freeze is still my second, which is no small feat to sneeze at. And just because I know people are still what was it? The person on the DK Vine forum, the guy who was upset about Metroid.
Should have been Metroid.
What did he? Well, yeah, no. There's a guy on the DK Vine forum when Tropical Freeze was announced. He was like a crusader against Tropical Freeze because it should have been. He called it flop. Ill gull sneeze. So this is nothing to flop a gull sneeze at, but it's just flop. The way I always parsed it out was flop.
Flopical freeze.
Flop. The game's gonna flop. Ill. It makes him sick to his stomach. Gull. I'm not really sure. Something about seagulls, maybe. Like the way they shit on the beach. And sneeze, he's allergic to. Yeah, so it was very
for disaster.
Yeah. So anyway, blast from the past there, just a mental rejiggering of my memory. So yeah, because I know people are curious. 2, Tropical Freeze. I'll put Country 3 as my third. Returns is my fourth, and the original Country is my fifth. And that's not to say I dislike it, because it's still one of my favorite games of all time. It's just compared to the others, that's the way I rank them. So it's a new hope of the bunch, where it clearly like did the groundwork, and it was just so mind blowing at the time. But then its sequels came along and just did all these things at so much quicker pace and higher quality. And so anyway, Star Wars, May the 4th.
May the 4th.
So yeah.
Funky fresh.
Anyway, yeah, so, like I said, this has been bandied about. I know I saw our good friend Josh on the Geek Critique. He talked about, oh man, it'd be great if Tropical Freeze come out for the Switch. I know we talked about it quite a bit on this show. And it kind of became this thing where, you know, nobody played Tropical Freeze. It still sold over 1 million copies, but just
and it was
barely.
Nintendo Select as well, so you know it sold pretty well.
I imagine they're going to be pulling that from stores now that the Switch version is coming out.
Get on it, people, if you have a Wii U.
It's like Conker and Diddy Kong Racing. We want to make people forget that this $20 edition exists and is readily available. Yeah, get it out of here. So, yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? We need to have Tropical Freeze on the Switch because, yeah, I bought it for the Wii U. I played the hell out of it on the Wii U. But I want more people to discover Tropical Freeze, and I want them to discover it under the better circumstances that Switch would provide that the Wii U didn't.
I figured that, like, since I'm a Wii U owner and I have, like, pretty much all of the Wii U games that are worth their salt, I was like, when I saw that that Nintendo was porting, like, all of the games to the Switch, it's like, well, that kind of sucks for the people who invested in a Wii U. Like, you're kind of just throwing them under the bus a bit, but I am the only game that I ever wanted to see make it to the Switch, like I was really hoping, was Tropical Freeze, because it just, due to the circumstances of Nintendo being stupid and forgetting how to market a console and stuff, this beautiful, beautiful game just got swept under the rug. And yeah, it's like, if we ever get a second chance, now is the time. And who knew?
Well, you know, it's something that when you actually put it into perspective, this has been the case since Jungle Beat. We have had the previous generation's main console Donkey Kong platformer remade for a current system. So with Jungle Beat, it was obviously new play control Jungle Beat for the Wii, which in my opinion is inferior. It completely mangles the point of Jungle Beat. Jungle Beat's a hard sell. I should know, because I was so fundamentally opposed to it for so long. But when you actually play Jungle Beat, it's insanely fun.
Now, that's interesting. Sorry I keep cutting you off there, but Jungle Beat, like, I bought the GameCube version first, and I remember, like, the day after a propane explosion happened in my area, so something, the magnitude of the game must have meant something. And then I got the Wii version, like, a year later, and I never had the bongos up until, like, last year, but I managed to 100% Jungle Beat with just a GameCube controller. But playing it with the Wii, that was...
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I did it, but I still managed, I still managed to play that game with the GameCube controller, and I powered through that game like a madman. But when I got the Wii version, since I didn't have to worry about the bongos, it was a lot more, well, for me at least, it was so much more, like, immersive and just so much more, like, wild. But I alternate between the two all the time.
I'm sure if your introduction to GameCube Jungle Beat was on the GameCube controller, a fine controller, my favorite Nintendo controller, but that game was not designed for that controller.
No.
So that would have been a very frustrating experience, I'm sure.
But I was like, I'm going to figure this out, and I did.
Admittedly, I have tried a couple times in my darkest moments of desperation trying to beat Donkey Kong 2. I have tried to do it with the GameCube controller just to see if it made it any easier. No, it does not.
No.
Oh, the feeling of sweat on your brow after you've been panning for 3 hours, and then you're desperately looking for a savior, and sometimes you're like, oh, maybe it's the GameCube controller, maybe I just need a change of perspective. And then you do one song with the GameCube controller and it's futile because there's no way you can keep up with the notes. And then you just, with a sigh, plug the bongos back in.
Here we go again.
So, we had new play control Jungle Beat, which in my opinion was inferior to the GameCube game with the bongos. But to the layman, it would have been immediately more appealing because, hey, you can actually play this with just the standard controller, and there's no weird, like, rhythm aspect to it. And then, of course, Donkey Kong Country Returns, just a couple of years after Donkey Kong Country Returns came out, we got Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS, and where that sacrificed
30
like
frames a second.
Yeah, and some background detail. It made
sounds.
up for it in having a more traditional control scheme. This time, in my opinion, greatly benefiting the game. Getting rid of the waggle controls, which I didn't have a problem with in Returns, but...
No, I used them in Tropical Freeze, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I played the whole game with my Wii Remote, and it was a blast.
You're full of surprises tonight. So, you're gonna turn out to be like the killer in like the
Clue.
Yeah. That's going to be like the biggest reveal. Is Malik.
I'm actually
killed-
Baron von. Well, I'm not Baron von Ghoul. I don't think I want to be Baron. I don't want to reveal to be Baron von Ghoul. But you'll never guess that the butler did it.
By the way, somebody is calling the DK Vine hotline right now. So apparently they're trying to get a call in, but alas, sadly, too late. We'll have to save it for a call sack episode. I appreciate the enthusiasm nonetheless. So anyway, yeah, I mean, for me, Returns 3D was a big improvement, frame rate and lack of graphical fidelity aside, because it controlled more like a traditional Donkey Kong Country game, and which is what Returns sought out to be at the end of the day. It didn't try to reinvent platforming like Jungle Beat did, or like I'm trying to do with podcasting this year. I can't wait for that rhythm episode of the Kongversation I have planned, where the only way to listen to it is through a bongo drum. Don't ask me how I'm going to plan that. So
Probably be easier than the Sea of Thieves podcast.
we'll find out. At the very least, less people shooting at me. So I thought Returns 3D was superior, and of course it added a whole new world, which was very fun. I mean, I loved that new world and the new levels therein, so much so that I'm still campaigning for Monster to make a Donkey Kong game wholly original on their own. I still think that would be fantastic to see. But now we've got Tropical Freeze for the Switch, and unlike New Play Control Jungle Beat or Returns 3D, this is more of a straight port in that, at least as far as we can tell, with the exception of one huge new mode. So, kind of tipping the conversation a little bit too early here. What cracks me up, though, about Tropical Freeze being announced for the Switch, Malik, I mentioned the negative circumstances the original game came out under.
Right.
Not only was the Wii U basically on life support after only being out for, what was it, like 2 years at that point? Or
not even 2 years, a little under a year and a half, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So it was almost moribund. You still had Mario Kart coming out. You still had Smash Brothers. And at the time, we thought there was still Zelda. And Zelda eventually came out as it was being put into the ground. But that was really more like, I don't know. It was like Zelda showed up at the Wii U's funeral before running off with the newborn baby that is the Switch. So it was it didn't really pay its respects to the Wii U all that much. But
oh no, not at all.
We still had all of these games potentially coming out for the Wii U when Tropical Freeze came out, but hardcore Nintendo fans had been the only ones to really go in for a Wii U.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of resentment in that hardcore fan base. One, because they thought we've been dealt a bad deal here. Nintendo needs to prove that the Wii U is a system that is on par with the Xbox and the PlayStation. We need our gritty Halo killers for the Wii U. We need Metroid, because people got in their head that if it only had a Metroid Prime, then all of a sudden the Wii U's people forget that Returns sold more than all three Prime games combined. And I'm not doing that
That's
to throw
my prime
shade.
argument.
The Prime Directive, to bring it back to Picard. I'm not casting aspersions or throwing shade, as the kids say, at the Prime trilogy. It's just a matter of fact that they were never the cultural touchstones that Nintendo fans think they are.
Yeah.
They sold very well. They got great critical response, but at the end of the day, they were not
They did not do gangbusters.
Flashpoints. Right. They were not these huge flashpoints like your Halos were. So that's besides the point, but I'm just trying to bring up the fallacy of the argument that there should have been a Metroid instead of Tropical Freeze. Now, granted, Tropical Freeze was a hard sell because, admittedly, there had been just a glut of platformers for the Wii U at the expense of many other genres. And yes, to platforming nerds like us, we may be able to tell the difference between Tropical Freeze and New Super Mario Bros. Absolutely, there's a huge difference in mechanics, in the way they play, in the challenge, in the world, and the way the world functions. A Dave Y soundtrack can just completely change the mood of anything.
Yeah, this is not your typical platformer thing. Like, there's so many, like, yeah, there were a bunch of different platformers on the system, but they all brought something new to the table, like New Super Mario Bros., Rayman Legends, Tropical Freeze, 3D World. Each one is different, but I guess to the layman, it's all the same thing. It's like, oh, you
or
make
the
it
Rayman. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right?
I was thinking that in the back of my head. I just didn't want to say it. I didn't know how to integrate it into this, but you did it for me.
Sorry.
So to the Rayman, it's all the same crap. Like, oh, you go from point A to point B. So why would I want 5 of these? You know? So where's my shooters? Where's my fighting games? Where's my open world MMO experience? Yeah.
And I can't really fault the gamers who felt that, because they're gamers of a different breed than I am. I am this guy who fell in love with Donkey Kong Country back in 1994, and in turn fell in love with the studio that developed it, because all of a sudden here's this game that came out that felt like it was made just for me. It was tailored to every sensibility I had as a child, then from there on helped develop the sensibilities I would grow as a teenager and young adult. So it's funny, like, for me, like, I stopped looking for other games when I got Donkey Kong Country, because for me, that game and Rare itself, that was it at that point. Like, I had found that holy grail at the tender age of 11 that, you know, some gamers may go their entire gaming careers looking for. And for me, there was no point anymore in really, like, being a well-versed, diverse gamer. I realize that sounds, like, idiotic, but
we all have different tastes.
We all have different tastes, and that was the way my life turned at that point. So that's the way I'm wired, but I can completely get that if you're looking more at the totality of a video games library. If you're a Nintendo fan, if you self-identify as a Nintendo fan, not a Donkey Kong fan, or even weirder, a Donkey Kong Universe fan, so you can talk about Sea of Thieves and ukulele, then yeah, Tropical Freeze wouldn't have been a big deal, and it would have actually been a lightning rod for you to kind of direct all of this negativity that had been building up about, you really announced, like, 3 Mario games at the same E3? Really? Another platform? I don't care how good Rayman is. It's another platformer. And then Tropical Freeze was like the straw that broke Gobi's back. And it was just too much, too soon. And no matter how expertly crafted it was, or how much it was the game that Retro actually wanted to make, it was a victim of poor timing. Mm-hmm. And
just the worst.
Then you had the gamers who, so-called gamer journalists who worked for actual media companies, who clearly just had an axe to grind with it and slaughtered it in their critical evaluations.
It's like, oh, it's Donkey Kong, this guy again, we just got Returns 3D. Are you kidding me?
I'm of course talking about GameSpot and their infamous, I think it was like something. Yeah, originally it was 5 out of 10, and then I think some editor at GameSpot said, this is ridiculous. You cannot give this game a 5 out of 10. And so the next day, the review mysteriously changed to a 6 out of 10. I don't really know what happened there, but yeah, for a brief window of time, maybe 12 hours, it was 5 out of 10.
And you know what, which is absurd. The craziest thing is, like, when GameSpot did their, like, Game of the Year thing, at the end of the year, the Tropical Freeze was like in several of their categories, and people were wondering like, why is this 6 out of 10 game that you guys are talking about? And they said because everybody else on their team liked the game. Had anybody else reviewed the game, it would have gotten way higher than 6 out of 10. They just happened to get somebody who didn't like platformers to review it.
It's just idiotic. Yeah, that really like.
It's like, what crack did you smoke?
That was the point where I was done with GameSpot. I mean, I don't read gaming news sites anymore. For me, like, reviews and hearing what these people think, I know they're not going to be attuned with my wavelength, so what's the point? I'm just going to find out for myself, and if I enjoy it. That's what I did with Yooka-Laylee. I mean, I did not let the negative hype that quickly cultivated around Yuka hinder my enjoyment at all, and I was able to walk away from that and say that was pretty fun. Like, yeah. I can see I might have this issue and this issue, but does it cripple the game for me? Absolutely not. So I think it's a far healthier way of going about it, and it's why like DK Vine doesn't do reviews anymore. Like, it's why we don't do these artificial Donkey Kong 64 10 out of 10 flawless masterpiece, or then go completely like overcorrect in the other direction. Oh yeah, Mario versus Donkey Kong 0.2 out of 10. just worse than Ebola. Just terrible. So you had all these negative circumstances, and of course then things like the Cranky Kong reveal at the Game Awards where
just
people were
outraged.
Worst place, full of dude bros, Spike TV
Cranky
again,
Kong.
aforementioned. And they made it even worse. Like, Reggie wore a Metroid pin, and it was like Nintendo was like almost purposely like stoking these coals a little bit, like trying to provoke
tick
people and just
people
get them
off.
angry.
Say, hey, it's more that Donkey Kong guy, but not that Metroid fellow. It's like, Cranky at the Spike TV Awards. Are you kidding me? I think Funky would be a better fit for the dude bro people. But I think Funky's above those people. But still, you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, honestly, I don't think there was anything they could have done to salvage Tropical Freeze. That E3 when Tropical Freeze was announced, and it was quickly figured out that Retro was doing it. When you're at E3, it is hard to keep up with the gaming world outside of E3, which was really weird to say because the gaming world is basically following what's happening at E3's lead, but you're in a bubble at E3, and I think almost immediately the negativity about Tropical Freeze was the story itself, and it got away from Nintendo overnight. They could not fix it, and it was a runaway freight train, and it wasn't until all of that cynical hype died down that people started to say, hey, you know what was a really good game? Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And it was just the most frustrating thing in the world to... I know you must have felt this way, because it was just... This game is brilliant! You're playing it, and you're like, this game is almost bringing me to tears. It is such a thing of beauty. How can nobody appreciate this?
Like just because people didn't want another one doesn't mean that this game, like, on its own isn't a good experience. And then when people finally start talking about it in, like, almost a year later, it's like, people, come on. It's like, why were you so mad about nothing? It's not like Retro was, like, shackled and it's like, you better make another Donkey Kong, or to quote, headline, you better make another damn Donkey Kong Country game, otherwise you won't get the funding. It's like, all right, Nintendo, okay, we'll make it. That thing was made with love and care. The narrative that Retro was being forced to make it really, like, got out in front of everything that Retro could say at that point. In a lot of ways, it was like the narrative that Mark Hamill hates The Last Jedi and hates what they did with Luke Skywalker. And it just gives people this kind of comfy little life preserver that's keeping them afloat. It's like, okay, I'm justified in feeling this way because these people who are intimately involved with the production of this thing feel the exact same way I do. It was like the way DK Vine felt when Dinosaur Planet became Star Fox Adventures, for example, or Rare had to make a bunch of Disney games.
at the turn of the century. It was like, oh, we hate this initially, and I'm sure Rare hates it too. I'm sure they're being forced to do this by Nintendo. I'm sure there's diverse opinions within Rare about both projects, but I think it's a fallacy to say, as a blanket statement, they hate this, and this will indirectly lead to the buyout, because that is not the case in what happened at all. So, I mean, we haven't been immune to it. I just hope we've kind of outgrown that mode of thinking, because it's such a childish way of looking at the world. And it's like you so want to be validated and your opinions to be validated that you're willing to rewrite reality.
Even when the writing is on the wall, that it's not the reason why. You just want to feel like it is. Just so you just want to keep that flame going, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jeez.
So, I wasn't online when they announced Tropical Freeze for the Direct, but by the time I got home, by the time I let the actual reactions that I've been seeing actually soak in, now that I had the context of seeing the reveal in the archived YouTube video, the thing that immediately jumped out to me was how different this reveal was versus the original reveal. How much has changed in 3.5 years? Or 4.5 years, excuse me, 4.5 years. Time stands still for no man. So gamers, for the most part, seem to be excited about Tropical Freeze now. And all of a sudden, we're back in the place we should have been in 2013. And I think it's just because the Switch has cultivated such positivity, such enthusiasm, such a gung-ho feeling of, okay, Nintendo, what do you got for us?
Yeah, everybody's happy.
And also the install base is much larger, so the people who have Switches are more varied. They're people who probably enjoyed past Donkey Kong Country games, or at least have heard about them and have a generally positive opinion on it. It's not the hardcore Nintendo, forget the term, but snobs, the Frasers and Niles of the Nintendo world who hold up their nose at anything that isn't like from Nintendo's Japanese developers, or from the direct hand of Miyamoto, or whatever really floats their boats. The serious Nintendo fans who kind of turn up their nose at Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country because they all came from Western developers, and they kind of eschew traditional Nintendo philosophies in favor of doing their own thing. So we have that a larger install base, and so people who never played Tropical Freeze, who didn't have a Wii U, are like, yeah, I want to play that. Hell yeah, give me that Donkey Kong Country. It's great to see. It's such a good feeling, because if any game, I would say, like, out of all the unfairly maligned games in the Donkey Kong universe, games that we cover, there's that upper echelon of, oh man, those games got a raw deal. And I would say those include Grab by the Ghoulies, Nuts and Bolts. Let's be fair, Nuts and Bolts got a raw deal. Had it been presented in an entirely different context at a different time, a couple years later, I think Nuts and Bolts would have been beloved when it came out. And yeah, Tropical Freeze. I would say those are almost like the holy trinity right there. And it's so nice to see. Ghoulies and Nuts and Bolts have had a mini redemption of sorts as part of Rare Replay. They didn't get it as much as Tropical Freeze because they were not the sole focus of Rare Replay, or they were 1 out of 30.
Ghoulies definitely won me over. I haven't gotten the chance to play Nuts and Bolts yet. I'm waiting for like the perfect time, but I went from being a guy that just hated Ghoulies on the merit that it was Grabbed by the Ghoulies to just, it's one of my favorite Rare games now. So it did its job, even if it didn't hit everybody. It did its job.
No, it's just one of those things where you have to get over the initial negative hype, and it's what I've said I've hated about the gaming industry, because, and particularly gaming fans, as a broad generalization, overgeneralization, you might say. People who are cinemaphiles, or fans of television, which is quickly, I think, surpassed cinema as almost a superior art form for long form storytelling. They're always giving things a second look, and films are always being critically reevaluated. So you get something like, let's talk about The Last Jedi. So The Last Jedi had decidedly mixed reaction, but right. I think over time that's going to have a less of a mixed reaction and more, oh, that was maybe the best Star Wars, or that was right up there with The Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is the DKC2 of Star Wars. It'll probably never be topped. Mm-hmm. But Last Jedi could very well be the tropical freeze of Star Wars. So you're always seeing films getting critically reevaluated over time. Games, less so. And I think it's because up until a couple years ago, games were always shackled to the console they were originally released on. Now, we're getting into this era where games are probably never going to go away, especially the first-party titles. And all they need is a reintroduction. And so to see Tropical Freeze actually get a critical reevaluation, a minor one, over the last 4 years, and then here we go. It's being re-released for the Switch, a system that everybody's excited about, and people are buying in droves. And then, oh yeah, Tropical Freeze, great game, can't wait.
Oh man,
it's great to see. It's great to see.
As soon as I saw, I heard, like we said earlier, we were hearing people talk about, how they wanted to see it come to the Switch. And, I wasn't sure if it was, but then when I saw it, show up in the Direct, I just jumped up and down, just, with such vindication. Yes! 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 I told you, homeboy! Oh.
So we've got a new DK Vine patron in the live stream chat. El Barcino Muerto, welcome. He says, or he or she, I'm not sure which. I honestly haven't read or watched a non-comedy game review since I was 14 years old, and quite honestly, the timing doesn't match up with me. But I feel you. I'm kind of right there with you. It's such a silly thing, I think, to I almost think gaming journalism has to mature into itself for me to really take it seriously anymore. And I'm not one of those it's about the ethics in video game. God no. But yeah, for me, the best way to consume this media and this stuff that I love is by taking the piss out of it and kind of having a shared laugh and being enthusiastic when something really excites you, but when something disappoints you, kind of just making light of it and of yourself. I think that's the best way to go about this stuff. And it's one reason why the vitriol aimed at Tropical Freeze was so dispiriting back then. Because it was just so antithetical to, I think, Donkey Kong fans' mindsets. For the most part, we are a fan base that is steeped in comedy, and that's because of Rare and what Rare kind of weaned us on. We're kind of just, we don't take ourselves too seriously,
Yeah. Definitely.
So, yeah, that's why whenever I see people taking our series too seriously, I always just kind of sigh, and I'm just you're just not getting it, man. You're just not getting it. I understand Donkey Kong on a whole other level than you do, man.
And that's true. It's absolutely true. You're not exaggerating.
There's some meme on Twitter that wasn't even directed at us, but it was a picture of somebody bowling. And I assume this is just one of those,
someone shared that with me. It was one of those Donkey Kong lore. Was that it?
Yeah. So it's one of those, I think, transposable memes where people just put different captions on an image. So it was the person holding a bowling ball. It said, how did it go? It was something me, and then the pins were or no, it was Donkey Kong lore was the bowling ball, and the pins were everybody else at the party or something. Because you just bowl them over with your knowledge of Donkey Kong lore. And I was just I don't know who made this. It wasn't, DK Vine was never tagged in it, so I don't think it was somebody in our active community, but I was just that's literally my life. And
yep,
it's great if it, yeah.
A friend of mine shared that with me over Discord, just out of the blue, And it's like, yeah, that is me. Like, when I was on another podcast, I proclaimed myself as the ultimate Donkey Kong fan, and that was it.
Yeah.
That same friend, as soon as the Nintendo Direct over, all they said was, Funky Kong! Funky Kong!
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of people shouting Funky Kong. So this is the big news of this version, Funky Mode.
Wow.
And we don't really know the nitty-gritty of how this is actually implemented yet, but here's what we do know. All right?
Right.
So Funky Kong will indeed be a playable character, the 5th playable character in the game. What we don't know, though, is whether this is an entirely separate mode that you select at the beginning of the game, a la Returns 3D's new mode, or if it's just an option on the map screen when you're selecting a level, like when you got to choose between Diddy, Dixie, or Cranky after you beat Secret Seclusion in the original game.
Right.
Or the time attack mode, or the myriad of modes that Retro gives you and lets you play their Donkey Kong Country games. So that's unknown. I'm leaning towards it's probably going to be a selection on the map screen, but then part of me starts thinking about that, and they're like, well, if the goal is to make this easier for the layman, surely they're just going to have the option when you start the game, and then you can't deviate from it. But then that seems to be restrictive, and I don't really know.
Yeah, they weren't clear on it.
And granted, I mean, they didn't really need to be clear on it, and this was a Nintendo Direct Mini. They just need to sell the concept of Funky is playable, and here's what it looks like. And for that, they did their job well. It's going to be interesting and fun finding out how Funky Mode actually works with the rest of the game, because the original game is part of the package. You're not just getting a funkadized version of Tropical Freeze. You're getting the original game as well. So here's what's so interesting about Funky Kong, because you think, oh, fifth character in Tropical Freeze. You initially think of it in the terms of how Dixie and then Cranky were revealed to us as basically another Kong you get out of a DK barrel that then rides around on Donkey Kong's back. Oh, basically another buddy Kong who is rooted to Donkey Kong in single player, and then can be partnered up with him in 2-player, but you still have to have Donkey Kong there. Not the case with Funky Mode. This is the most, I think, radical departure Retro has made from their formula.
Radical.
Well, yeah, gnarly tubular. So, and go through the rest of the Super Mario World Secret World level names. So, Funky seems to be taking the place of at least Donkey Kong himself in Funky Mode. So
wouldn't it be weird if Funky went on DK's back?
I mean, on the surface, Cranky being on DK's back seems weird because they're both gorillas, but I think Cranky's diminutive, elderly. Yeah.
They're both the same size. That'd be weird.
Well, if this is how we're correctly interpreting it, then I love that in a Donkey Kong Country game, we finally make good on Funky Kong essentially being nothing more than Donkey Kong's original model wearing sunglasses, shorts, and a bandana. And by the way, that is not just our interpretation of it. That is something that
said.
Steve Mails copped to that on Twitter this last week. That, he just created Funky Kong by throwing sunglasses on Donkey Kong.
And he said teeth as well. That he made a note of that. He had the grin before DK got the grin.
He did. The toothy grin was originally seen on Funky Kong and Swanky Kong.
Yeah.
Before Donkey Kong ever started utilizing it. And it was to be understood that Donkey Kong had teeth. He just didn't show them,
Yeah, because we've seen them in the cartoon, and those were horrifying.
Well, Donkey Kong Racing, around that era, the pre-buyout era of when Rare was still, going all in on Donkey Kong games that would ultimately either never see release or be reworked as other spin-off characters like Banjo or, of course, Mr. Pants. They did start to develop on Donkey Kong's model. He had like little nubs of teeth in his gums. Just
I always found
very
that a little
subtle.
disturbing, but it's a nice little upgrade, I guess.
I think the thing is they wanted to like clearly establish no, Donkey Kong isn't just gumming his bananas. He's actually got teeth, but they didn't want it to be
swallowed them whole.
They didn't give him like horrifying chiclets, like just these weird, like they were more like gorilla teeth. Super Smash Bros. Melee actually showed him with kind of more realistic gorilla teeth with like sharpened like canines, and I always like that. I don't like the toothy grin. It works on Funky Kong and Swanky Kong because one's a California surfer dude and the other is a cheesy game show host. So it works on them. And it works with like Cranky Kong and his falsies. But Donkey Kong, I always like the more subtle take on him. But whatever. I'm far past the point where I complain about the toothy grin at every opportunity. So, and by the way, Retro has been very restrained in their use of the toothy grin. In a lot of their renders, Donkey Kong is back to the gummy sort of smile. He'll occasionally flash his toothy grin, but you look at most of those renders, and they don't overdo it. Yeah, they don't overdo it like they do in the Mario cameo games. So anyway, Funky, yeah. So by himself, Funky is... He's obviously designed to be this game's version of the new mode, or
Super Kong.
Easy mode. Well, Super Kong was kind of just a get out of jail free card. It was, you can't beat this level, let the computer beat it for you. You just don't get any of the puzzle pieces. Funky Kong is completely playable, but he's been given skills and powers that are designed to make Tropical Freeze a bit easier for the layman Rayman. For somebody who isn't so skilled at platforming games, hasn't necessarily played the original 4 Donkey Kong Country games before this, who, you know, new Super Mario Brothers might be more up their alley, but
Scrubs.
Tropical... Zach Braff, exactly. I could see Zach Braff absolutely, like, playing this game and making some sort of sappy hipster mid-aughts comedy about it that people will love at first but grow to hate afterwards. It'll be the inverse of what happened with Tropical Freeze. They'll be like, this is great, and then 5 years later like, oh, that a piece of shit, Zach Braff's a hack, you should have never left Scrubs, you idiot.
Man, those doctors were not funny.
So
a funny guy.
Turk was the funniest.
I know nothing about Scrubs. I just know that people didn't think it was funny.
Scrubs has its moments. I've gone through my hot and cold periods of Scrubs. Not every episode holds up, but there are some great episodes. But seriously, Turk is the best character of Scrubs. Discussion over. So, Funky mode though is designed for those who are children or aren't so skilled. No. Look, this is really a problem. This has been a problem with Tropical Freeze, and it's something I didn't really recognize until later that it was a problem. The game was not very accessible to people who did pick it up, especially kids. Returns was barely accessible for the kids who picked it up. They were brutally hard.
Yeah, that's true.
And, you know, it was great for somebody who had weaned himself on the rare originals, the Super Nintendo classics, who played the Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Country, the Game Boy Advance remakes. But, oh man, like, I've heard so many tales of 8-year-olds not even getting through the first world and never picking up Returns again. Ooh. Returns sold great, but did it really do itself a disservice by making itself so hard? So when you had new mode in Returns 3D, I think it was designed to placate those, which is weird because then Tropical Freeze completely ignored that and just amped up the difficulty even more.
Even with all the stuff that new mode had in Returns 3D?
Yeah. Basically, it gave you what new mode added, and then ramped up the difficulty, so it completely nerfed what those added. So, I mean, I love Tropical Freeze to death, and for me, it is like the master class of platforming. It is the graduate level course, AP Ape Biology, but.
AP biology.
There you go. Damn it, Hyle. I'm out of Angry Orchard, and so my cleverness has rapidly dissipated. So apologies.
It's in me now.
Yes, you've somehow assumed the powers of my Angry Orchard. The Angry Orchard has awakened in you. Well, I'm a bitter old hermit on an island full of porgs. My analogies. I got kill you. Well, drink a couple more Angry Orchards. Your liver will give out over time. Or wait, I drink a couple more Angry Orchards, and then your liver give. This is great. I can drink as much as I want, and you take the effects.
No, don't do it. You'll regret it. You'll live to regret it, and I won't.
The good people at Angry Orchard would like me to say, if they were aware that I was constantly plugging their product, to drink responsibly. So. Easy mode is funky mode. And how does funky make it easier? Well, for starters, Malik, funky has 5 hearts in the game, up from the normal 2 that Donkey Kong or Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky would have. So when you think about all that you could accomplish with 5 hearts, it's going to make this game substantially easier. You're going to be hearing the da-na-na-na-na-na-na far less than you would normally. And it's interesting to also note, so we don't really know if Funky can use Buddy Kongs in single player. I'm leaning towards no for reasons I'll get into in just a second. But we've seen 2-player mode, and in 2-player mode, we've seen him palling around with Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky. So in 2-player mode, those Kongs have 3 hearts up from the normal 2. So it seems to me that Funky is designed for the less experienced player, the novice, while like the parent or the older brother or sister or the weird guy who hosts a weekly Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Universe and Rare related podcast who shouldn't be hanging out with children because he doesn't have any of his own, so why would he do that? They would take that character, that buddy character, and let the novice play as Funky. And that's my takeaway from how this is going to be presented to people. And Funky has the abilities. This is why I don't think the Buddy Kongs are going to be in single player in Funky mode. And that is because Funky essentially has every single ability that the Buddy Kongs would bring to the table and help augment Donkey Kong. So, Funky, the crux of playable Funky Kong, and I never thought I would say playable Funky Kong because I never even entertained the notion that Funky would ever be playable in a platform game. I'm sure, like, the thought crossed my mind, and I'm sure somewhere in the annals of DK Vine history, the annals, if you like, I'm sure somewhere somebody can find me on a record as saying, if Funky was playable, here's how I would do it, and then say, you see, Hyle is a fraud. But to that I say, shut up. No, I never, because Funky, when he was introduced, he was presented as, he was far too laid back to go on adventures. I believe that was something in probably the original instruction manual for Donkey Kong Country. Too laid back to go on adventures. And
even his Brawl trophy said that he dislikes adventuring, but he likes helping out the Kongs whenever he can. So I was like, as soon as I found out he was playable, I was like, dude, he likes adventuring now. Or maybe he's just so powerful, it's nothing to him.
Well, Cranky would, in the past, wouldn't have been caught dead in a game with all those colors that scrolled.
Well,
so,
of course not.
With Cranky, we explained it away pretty easily that, one, he was kind of involved in the initial literal blowout of Donkey Kong's birthday party.
Yeah, he was evicted from his home.
And with Cranky, too, you can always just play the card that he's a hypocrite. That it was really just jealous bitterness about being forced into retirement that led him to hate Rare's Donkey Kong Country games. And that given the chance of being playable, he would change his tune in a heartbeat.
Take all you kids to school.
Right. So Cranky, we were able to fan wank that away. Funky, I feel like it's a little bit harder to fan wank away, but the fact that
maybe he just got high.
Well, he could just be high as fuck, and he smoked a bowl right before the snowman's attacked, and he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, that was some pretty powerful stuff. Like he smoked Screaming Viking brand of weed. That was the strain he smoked, and so he thought the snowman's rolling in was just a side effect of what he just smoked.
Penguins with Viking hats.
I gotta give you part of this. Like, he'll wake up like naked in the bushes after Funky mode's over, and he'll be like, "Dude, what happened, man?"
And he'll just speaking Jamaican. Where's my board?
He'll just grab a bowl of Tropical Freeze for Switch cartridges and start munching on them. Dude, man, I don't know what it is. I got cotton mouth to the extreme. I don't know how stoners talk. I apologize to all of our very articulate and proficient stoners who like to get high to every episode of The Kongversation. So, surfboard, hoverboard. Funky has a surfboard that he uses as the basis for all or most of his moves and attacks. And not only is it a surfboard, but it is a hovering surfboard, which possesses the same floating capabilities as the one he rode in Funky's Flights 2 in Donkey Kong Country 2. Where's that image of the guy with the bowling ball? Because, bang, I just bowled you over. Bowled you over.
That's what I said to myself. It's like, wait, his surfboard. Wait, that's just like Funky's Flights.
It's not identical, but he can imbue more than one surfboard with hovering technology. It's Funky Kong.
Dixie Kong had like a bubble gun pop gun, and it's like, sure, why not? That's like alluding to DKC2.
Exactly. So, whether or not this is actually an intentional reference, just a very slight homage that somebody at Retro cooked up, was inspired by it, or is actually completely unintentional and we're just reading way too much into it, it's still very much appreciated as somebody who takes this continuity overly serious.
Well, if you don't take it seriously, I mean, who will?
Right. I mean, I feel like, I've often said, we try to be the gatekeepers, the kind of chroniclers and preservers of Donkey Kong canon. And I mean, if we leave one legacy on this planet, Malik, it's, I want future generations to fully understand the complex ancient history of the Rare Archipelago and how there was the Kremlantis Empire, which was a rival of the Atlantis Empire, near what became the Isle of Hags, and how the Kongs developed in Kremling territory. Donkey Kong Island's originally Kremling territory until Tiki Tong breached our realm and started the Tiki Tak tribe religion, which then led to the Kong clan being formed as tribute to Tiki Tong. And then they overthrew the Kremlings from what would eventually become Donkey Kong Island. Maybe it was just called Kong Island at first, and then when Cranky became the steward of the island, he changed it to Donkey Kong Island as a just very, very, self-satisfied, egotistical power trip. It's like putting your name on a tower in Manhattan. I can't think of any real-world analogies to that, but
I'm not going to bring them up either here. No, sir.
Well, you're Canadian. You're not allowed to bring them up. It's not...
It's not necessary, but yeah, it's like, I mean, there are Kremling ruins on the on Donkey Kong Island. I mean, that's what I always thought. Maybe
exactly. Kremling ruins, which was later established in Donkey Kong Land as being part of the Kremlinist Empire. So anyway, all I'm saying is I want future generations to know this stuff. It cannot go to the grave with me. Or you, after I have a few more Angry Orchards and you die of alcohol poisoning.
You monster.
So the surfboard, basically, like I said, it combines Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky's abilities. It can double jump, it can hover in the air, and it can also be used to traverse the spikes on the ground. So
Crazy sucker.
He doesn't bounce on it like Cranky's Scrooge McDuck he just kind of flops on the spikes. And I guess the wood is strong enough that the spikes don't penetrate.
Or again, maybe he's just high and he just doesn't feel it.
There is also that possibility, which will make a great secret world to Funky Mode. Funky goes to the ER when he sobers up. Funky has to get around on a rascal scooter for the next 5 years because of the damage he did to his feet. Funky Goes to Physical Therapy would be a great, would have been a great Wii title. It's unfortunate.
Won't you take me to Funky Town? That would be good too.
Yeah. All these great games that Nintendo missed out on during the height of motion gaming. Like, could you imagine like Funky Goes to Physical Therapy and like Funky has to relearn how to walk and you at home have to relearn how to walk with him? That fantastic.
Funky
riveting.
wonders why he didn't wear pants in the 90s.
Well, yeah, Funky's always covered his bits though. I mean, he's had swim trunks, and then he went to the jeans, and then he had he briefly had the like the army fatigues, but he's always did he
show?
Oh, well,
he was buck naked.
You hold the show to a higher level of canonicity than I probably do. So for me, Funky has always like covered himself up. Where yeah, the show Funky was just like he was just letting it hang, letting it free. And I don't know.
Don't forget that, because I mean, when you're Canadian and you have to show Canadian shows for the majority of like the content you show on TV, you don't forget what you've seen. And I saw a lot of Funky Kong on the TV without pants.
I thought you were going to say because it's harder to be a nudist in Canada because it's much colder.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, it's not like the time I went hiking here in the mountains, and I on the trail I just passed a very, very naked old man wearing nothing but a hat.
You sure that's not the hatted Kong from Donkey Kong Land? Like
I should have taken a picture with him and be like, me and Commuter Kong. But he was in the wilderness, so it wouldn't really. If he was in the city, then sure. I guess he had his car keys in his hat. I really don't want to know where else he would have stuck them. Anyway. So when he tells his friends he's gone mudding, he means something completely different than the other rednecks in the area.
I don't even want to know what that means.
Yeah, you don't ask. So those are the moves Funky can do with his surfboard. And again, the wood must be pretty strong to withstand the spikes. Rest in peace, Spike TV. But I wonder,
bam,
like, he must be using some serious heavy-duty rainforest wood then. And then that raises all sorts of ethical questions. Like, where is Funky getting this wood? Maybe, the Kremlins were cutting down the redwood trees in Donkey Kong Country 3. Maybe he kept a little something for himself then. He was like, I can make some killer surfboards out of this. And ethically it's fine because the Kremlins already cut it down, dude.
Sure, why not? I mean, he made the gyrocopter and stuff like that. Why not?
He is wearing he's wearing his Donkey Kong Country 3 mechanics get up in Tropical Freeze. So maybe that
kept it throughout the years.
Yeah, maybe that's to allude to the fact that his surfboard was taken from the the redwoods of the Northern Hemisphere that were already cut down, and that Funky has not in any way harmed any other redwood forest or rainforest to produce his hovering surfboards.
I would like to think that.
That's going to be my personal fanon from here on out, because to me, it was already upsetting enough that Funky was an arms dealer in Donkey Kong 64. I don't need to associate deforestation with my man Funky.
It was war in DK64. They had a laser pointed to the island. Something
that
had
is
to get
true.
Done.
That is true. Yeah. Unlike
it's war now.
Unlike
I didn't start this war, but it's on.
Unlike all of the false alarms we've had recently, things were about to go up in smoke on Donkey Kong Island. For once, I don't mean funky. So
I was gonna say that too, and I don't mean pot smoke.
Funky, independent of his surfboard, or apparently independent of his surfboard. I don't know if, like, in universe it's explained by the fact that he has a surfboard on his person. I guess he keeps it, like, underneath his shirt and his pants. I don't know where he keeps it when he doesn't have it out. But, Funky can perform infinite rolls on ground, and he can perform infinite underwater corkscrews while going for a swim.
Now, couldn't DK do that too?
Couldn't Donkey Kong only do it if he had a Kong on his back?
You know, I'm not
as far as the rolling goes, I want to say as far as the rolling goes, yeah. Now, here's something that Donkey Kong definitely couldn't do, Malik, and that is, well, he could do it in every other Donkey Kong game, not including Returns, but he couldn't do it in Tropical Freeze, and that is breathe underwater. So you had to find the air bubbles in Tropical Freeze. You had an air meter, which was completely contrary to every other established country, land, Donkey Kong 64, and even Jungle Beat. It completely...
Like, so sorry, but I always saw it as, like, since he didn't swim in Returns, it had been so long, he's still a little rusty. So it's like, oh yeah, I can swim, but I still haven't figured out that whole breathing indefinitely underwater thing. That maybe in the next game. That's my theory.
That's one possible explanation for it. You know, we've always explained that the Kongs could breathe underwater because they knew where to search for the oxygen-producing plants, and they could do it almost without thinking. It was almost second nature to them. They were so trained in the ways of the wild that they found these canon oxygen-producing plants, because we've seen them in Tropical Freeze, and like, it's not just plants, it's other things that produce oxygen bubbles as well. But we saw it in Banjo-Kazooie with Gloop. You know, the characters can breathe underwater, they just need to find the proper oxygen supplies.
Or Mumbo needs to do his magic as well.
Or oxygenate the water completely via sun magic for some reason.
Sun.
Funky in Tropical Freeze does it old school. He does not need to search out for oxygen bubbles. He, as far as this footage tells us, he is perfectly fine underwater at all times. But when he's with a buddy character, that buddy in two-player mode will still have an oxygen meter, further fueling the theory that Funky is definitely designed for the novice, and the buddy characters are designed for the older, more experienced players.
Yeah, seems that way.
So we're going to have to come up with an explanation on why Funky can breathe underwater here, but the rest of the Kongs can't. Maybe Funky is just the most skilled at breathing underwater because he is a surfer. He is somebody who spends a lot of time getting wiped out and going underwater. I'm sure he's developed the skill, and he knows where to find oxygen bubbles that the others don't. He's like got some Matrix code shit when he's underwater. He can see the
Dustin
code.
Just says that Funky has a scuba mask.
He has a scuba mask. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Why didn't you tell me? I look like a fool now, Malik. I look like a fool.
I completely forgot in the moment. I was just suckered in by your whole explanation. I was just going to say, maybe he just got high. I want every explanation to
because
just be...
he got high.
Because he got high, but he does have the scuba mask. He just has a scuba mask. As
a surfer, he's always prepared. So you see how fast I can change on a dime, as if be so self-assured in my fan wanking, even though half a minute later I was preaching something completely different. No, of course he has a scuba mask. He wouldn't dare go anywhere without a scuba mask, because what if he finds some killer waves? He's got to partake, dude. And what if the riptide's too strong? He's not going to die today. Not when there's so many more strains of marijuana.
And he's not going to sell it to them because that's his only one.
That's his only one. Yeah, he probably developed it himself. It's probably a specialty made scuba mask because he is a jack of all trades.
Absolutely. Just
now,
couldn't make two.
Yeah. We'll say that. So there are some people that are upset because it seems that there are no new stages in this port. At the very least, Nintendo is not promoting that fact, which is something they promoted straight away with Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D. So the good money is on the fact that, yeah, there's probably no new world, no new levels. They didn't beef up Secret Seclusion or anything.
Right.
What you see is what you get. You get an easier mode where you get to control as Funky Kong. And because of that, some see this as a shameless... Lazy is a term I saw bandied about on our Facebook page today. Lazy cash grab, where they're not putting the time in this port that they should, and that we'll get into this. And that it's also kind of an insult to those who did buy a Wii U, who did support Tropical Freeze on the first go around, and that it's just unfair to everybody. It's unfair to those who actually adopted the original Tropical Freeze. I don't know why I say adopted, as if it were like a Cabbage Patch doll, or those who were waiting for Tropical Freeze for the Switch, and now you're not going to get any real genuine new content. At the very least, that's there for those who just want a challenge and don't want a free and easy mode. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I really don't have a problem with it because, like we've said earlier, most of the people who are playing this have not played the original before. And I mean, if the funky mode is great, I don't really feel like I'm getting gypped at all. I really wasn't expecting there to be anything in this port at all. Like, the fact that Funky Kong alone is in this game was just a mind-blowing thing to me. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it because, again, not a lot of people played it. This is going to be the first time playing it. The game is already great as it is. And I mean, it's a port. I mean, I wasn't expecting too much.
Yeah, look, I said I'm of two minds about this, and I really am, but the one mind is like a kind of just this vestigial twin I absorbed in the womb, and the other mind is fully functioning. So the small fetal twin brain tells me that, oh man, yeah, this is kind of unfair for those who bought a Wii U. The Wii U is essentially a redundant nothing system now that's not going to have any games that aren't eventually brought over to the Switch, where they will be played by more gamers. And it's just such a unfair blight on the history, because the Wii U, for all of its problems, did have a lot of great games for it.
Absolutely.
And Tropical Freeze, in my opinion, and in my personal taste, was far and away the game to own a Wii U for. So I see and I understand that point. However, at the end of the day, I love Tropical Freeze, and especially I love Donkey Kong so much that I want Tropical Freeze to get the due that's coming to it. I want, and when I say due, I'm not referring to Baja Blast. Before we get Baja Blast, we've got to get Tropical Freeze to a level of success that it deserves. Yeah. And whatever that takes, whatever means necessary, short of committing murder or arson or tax fraud like Yoshi, we've got to make it happen. And you know what? The Switch is successful in a way that the Wii U never could have dreamed to be successful, because I know the Wii U dreams. Oh no, wait, that was Banjo-Kazooie. Codename. Okay, never mind. Sorry. So the Wii U was a failure. And because the Wii U was such a failure, Tropical Freeze only sold, by the skin of its teeth, around 1 million copies. And to me, that's unacceptable. That is a disgrace to the hard work that Retro Studios put into this game, the stellar work they did, from the level design all the way to David Wise's phenomenal soundtrack. So, yeah, I want Tropical Freeze to be played by people, millions of people, and this is the way to do it. And you know what? I'm sorry the Wii U failed, but at this point in time, there's nothing we can do about that. So let's just move forward. As far as the argument that Retro should be providing more for this, I think Tropical Freeze is pretty damn good as... The problem with doing a remake or a port that adds stuff to it is you can start to sully the actual experience of the game and make it something less than. I look at the Game Boy Advance remakes of the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, and I like them. They're great fun. But I look at something like Donkey Kong Country 2, and let's ignore the fact that the backgrounds were still washed out, that the color palette was far too light.
Yeah.
Ignore all of that. Let's just look at what Rare added to the game, what the Game Boy Advance team at Rare at the time, the portable handheld team, added to the game. They added a lot of cool stuff to it, but it felt like with all of these games, and I might even be including the New World of Pacifica and DKC 3 GBA here. Well, it felt like when they added stuff to it, somehow the game became less than the original. Because I feel like when a game is developed originally, it can be such a finely tuned work of art that to then come along years later and just arbitrarily start adding shit, even if it's like a completely different world or new levels, it can then have an impact on your overall impression of the game. Because if those levels fail to measure up, if it feels unnatural, like it feels like it's just tacked on, like this doesn't feel like it's a natural part of the game. And I think back to like all of those like gyrocopter mini games in DKC 2 GBA, and I think about how they like messed with the ending to DKC 2, the best ending in any video game of all time, and they made it some. They added dialogue. They made it cheap and tawdry when it was a sublime, melancholy thing of beauty. And yeah, again, I'm a 34-year-old man waxing nostalgic about a children's game and calling it a work of art. But
hey,
damn it, if that's not how I feel. Yeah,
it's powerful.
I mean, keep in mind, I was 12 when I experienced it, and that was one of the most profound things. Like that was my Citizen Kane right there. That was my like.
Dude, I was 16 in 2011, and that was insane to me.
Yeah. Oh, you're
all
so
I did
young.
All I did was just sit there in front of the TV. I left it. I played it on the Virtual Console, and then I just sat there for like a good 5 minutes, just soaking it in. Like I already knew it was coming beforehand by looking up what to do, but it was just so cool. I had dreams about that stuff, man. It's powerful.
Absolutely. So. Well, I feel like Tropical Freeze could have some room for improvement. I am a big enough fan of Tropical Freeze that I almost feel like it's not even worth taking the risk. Tropical Freeze is brilliant the way it was presented, and we have this whole new mode that's going to be kind of kept to the side of the actual core game, much in the same way the Donkey Kong DLC will be in Rabbids, I presume. So, I'm okay with it. And I love what Monster Games did with Returns and Returns 3D. I love the new world they added. It felt natural, but that always felt like it was a hole in Returns to me. It felt like there is something missing here that should be here. And Monster Games could then come along and patch that hole in a very naturalistic way. I don't think Tropical Freeze really had that same problem.
No,
of course I would want more, but... Nah.
I feel like if you added anything more, you might as well make a whole new game along with like Animal Buddies or new levels or a new world.
So as far as getting Tropical Freeze into this area of greater cultural acknowledgement and appreciation, this is the best way to do it, and I'm 101% satisfied with
Not
what we've seen.
103 or 200% like in Tropical Freeze itself.
Okay, fine. I was trying not to be hyperbolic, but sure. Now, Malik, were you on Twitter when all of this was going down last Thursday for the direct meeting?
Yeah, after the direct was finished, I went to see what people were talking about, and a lot of people were talking about Funky Kong, the Donkey Kong this, Donkey Kong that. They took, like, have you seen the meme where they took, like, the new funky mode thing from the Tropical Freeze Switch box art, and they're just putting it on movies, video games, so it's like Dark Souls remastered, new funky mode. It's great.
I contributed one to that days after the fact where I made a Beatles rock band with new funky mode, and I gave Paul McCartney Donkey Kong's tie, I gave John Lennon Cranky's beard, George Harrison had Dixie's beret, and Ringo had Diddy's hat. So that was my one contribution to the meme. But so Funky Kong was trending on Twitter. So I took a snapshot of the moment in time because it was such an historic moment that I wanted to preserve the insanity of what I was seeing. So I'm going to read for you all of the trends when Funky Kong trended on Twitter.
Okay.
And this is the order they appeared in. Hashtag National Milk Day. Hashtag Thursday Thoughts. Hashtag My High School Years in 5 words. Hashtag FISA in all caps. I
don't know what that is.
Some sports I don't know. Switch was trending. Medicaid was trending, and then Twitter sometimes adds a little like further explanation of news when it's trending. So under Medicaid, it said Trump administration opens door for Medicaid work requirements.
Oh my.
Then under that, Tropical Freeze. Under that, Funky Kong. Under that, SNK Heroines. And then Dark Souls Remastered. So, yeah. For what it's worth, Malik, now Cranky Kong and Funky Kong have both trended on Twitter. Wow. And I would say, as you mentioned earlier, the reaction to Funky was far, far more positive. It was almost joyous. And maybe that's the difference between revealing something during the Spike TV Game Awards versus revealing it on a random Thursday morning in January. But, man, people loved the Funky reveal. And
it was great. I mean, Funky's already pretty adored by a lot of people already.
Because he appeared in Mario Kart Wii.
Yeah, I mean, out of all places for people to, like, find him, Mario Kart Wii was, like, the last place I would have thought.
Yeah. And
it's weird.
I mean, it worked because he's their mechanic, of course.
Yeah.
Get the mechanic in there. Get the guy who probably develops the Kong's custom karts to actually drive some of his own. I love that reveal when it happened, and I honestly still think it's a shame that Funky Kong has not been in a Mario Kart since. But again, I've mentioned from what I'm hearing, there is going to be a concentrated effort to kind of remove Donkey Kong's world from Mario as much as reasonable. So I don't know if we're even going to ever see Diddy in a Mario Kart game again, as long as this current MO from Nintendo carries forward. We'll see.
I'd like to see Diddy at least.
I'd like to see a new Diddy Kong Racing. So you know what? Let's say you shoot for the stars, but you miss and you land on the moon anyway.
And then you punch it.
Yeah, and then you groan, and then you say Donkey Kong Country 2 had a much better ending than this.
I like that ending, to be fair. I thought it was really fun.
Some people liked it. I'm going to be in the camp that felt it was too outlandish. Even though I fan wanked it, but it was still pretty damn outlandish. And I love when I'm playing Sea of Thieves and I look at the moon and I'm like, someday, hundreds of years from now, Donkey Kong is going to punch you.
And you won't destroy the Earth.
No, because of the gravity well that Tiki Tong Tower created, that created this isolated, like, umbilicus cord. Umbilical cord to umbilicus was from Mystery Science Theater. It was the cord that connected Deep 13th, the satellite of love. Nerd. But this cord that connects the moon to Tiki Tong Tower on Dong Kong Island, a gravity well that then when Tiki Tong Tower was destroyed, the gravity well vanished and the moon was put back exactly in its orbit where it was left. Slingshot it back with nary an effect on the tides.
I believe that.
Yep, this is my life. So
why not?
But honestly, like, one more thing about funky trending on Twitter, which was still so weird to say. As silly and ephemeral as Twitter trends are, because, they come and go so quickly. I mean, right. TV shows trend when they're happening. It's still a great moment of validation for us longtime fans of the series. Or even people who just got into this nonsense. And to see that on Twitter... because, we consider Funky to be a household name. Funky is like a very, very close relative of ours at this point. Funky has been a part of my life, if you want to say that, for over 23 years. But to actually see it get recognition in such a public, mainstream sector is just such a mind-shattering... realization that this is not normal. This is not something that happens. And to see our world put on such a grand stage, even such a small moment of time, it's kind of like, whoa,
boggles the mind.
I mean, it's even one thing to see Sea of Thieves trending on Twitter because, okay, it's a big new game from Microsoft and Rare, and it's getting a huge marketing push. So, okay, yeah, Sea of Thieves trending on Twitter. Okay, great. Funky Kong? Funky Kong?
It's weird because, like you said, I've known Funky all my life. I've known about him ever since I was a wee lad. And then just he's a character that has come and gone out of relevancy. And I mean, I don't freak out about things that I see trending on Twitter, but I had to tell my brother, it's like, dude, Funky Kong is trending on Twitter. And he was like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget the surrealness of Cranky Kong trending on Twitter. And granted, that was most what? Who the fuck is Cranky Kong? Cranky Kong? What's Cranky Kong? Cranky Kong? Why is Cranky Kong trending on... half tweets about Cranky Kong were, why is Cranky Kong trending on Twitter? So... Funky Kong was something completely different. It had just a lot of giddy memes that are still continuing. I love it. I think it's great. And I'm somebody who normally hates memes. It's oh, Danky Kang. Oh, ha ha ha. Expand dong. Ah, ha ha ha. Do a barrel roll. Oh. But I absolutely adore this funky meme. And because it's creative, and it's
creative, it's wholesome, it's not laughing at somebody's expense.
Dustin, DJ Dustin, who is in the live stream right now, had one of the most retweeted funky memes, if not maybe the most retweeted funky memes, of Funky in the birth canal. I believe that was what it was. Funky giving the thumbs up in the birth canal as somebody's giving birth.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was you, Dustin?
Yeah, so I was like, good for you. And this is why I love the funky meme, because it is essentially Donkey Kong fan humor being projected on a wide... it's the stuff we've been doing for years. Oh, yeah, the Call of Duty game that's being promoted on the LA Convention Center for E3. What if that was Donkey Kong Golf? And it's the same principle. It's, what if Funky Kong is in this game where Funky Kong absolutely does not belong? What if Funky Kong has all of this mainstream attention and appeal? Except in this case, he did, which is amazing. All right.
Unbelievable.
All right, Malik. We've got some listener calls we need to take. They all have something to say about Funky Kong. I'm sure it will stoke a little bit more discussion between us, and then we'll wrap up the episode with our final, for now, thoughts about Funky Kong, because it is 2018 and we have a lot more to discuss about Tropical Freeze for the Switch, Funky Kong, and Donkey Kong, and the Donkey Kong universe in general. This is shaping up to be a huge year. So let's get started with our first call of the season.
Alrighty.
Oh, okay. Okay, stay calm. Hi. This is Bean Dude, and I just watched the most recent Nintendo Direct. Money! They actually did it! They actually freaking did it! Oh, they did it! They really did it! I never got a Wii U. I almost got one because of Tropical Freeze, never did. And for months I've been like, why can't they just release Tropical Freeze on the Switch so it'll be a perfect system, because Nintendo's really been killing it lately, but man. Nintendo didn't just win E3, they just won the whole year. And not only that, freaking Funky Kong, are you kidding me? They didn't even have to do that. They could have just ported the game and I would have been happy, but no. I'm kind of speechless right now. I didn't watch the Direct originally because I was just like, who cares? It's another Nintendo Direct. The last one in September was mostly third-party stuff, but, I mean, like, but besides that, like, Dark Souls, like, what else? I can't remember, like, I'm so, ecstatic, I can't remember what, like, it was a bunch of good stuff, and, like, remember back in 2013, I remember, well, I've actually been binging, earlier Kongversations, and it's like, in 2013, it was like everyone was so hyped for Tropical Freeze and everything. I'm like feeling that again now, but it's kind of weird because it's not even a new game. Anyways, who's gonna run the shop? I have a theory. My theory is it's B-Locker. That's right. It's B-Locker confirmed. Well, not really confirmed, but that's who I hope it is. It better be B-Locker, okay? Whoever's working on this port, haven't done much research. I will be doing more research immediately after I stop this call. But I'm putting all my bets on B-Locker. I'm going to hit up all the associated parties with Nintendo Retro, etc. Tell them B-Locker for Tropical Freeze, what's it called, Definitive Edition. I don't even care. I had to make this call immediately because holy fucking shit, I am really excited. Anyways, yeah, I already know what the next conversation's going to talk about, so, yeah, I made a rash call. I know this is going to be relevant. See you, dudes.
Well, thank you for the call, Bean Dude. That was that was literally the reaction video call from Bean Dude. We called in right after watching the Nintendo Direct. Well, yeah, I love that enthusiasm. That's great. Like, that's the giddiness I think we all felt. Initially I felt panicked because I wasn't at home and I have to get shit up for DK Vine because everybody's going to DK Vine. Oh, DK Vine, there's a big Donkey Kong centric news story right now. DK Vine, where are you? DK Vine, DK Vine. It's like how Batman must feel when they're flashing a bat signal and he's like stuck at a party or something as Bruce Wayne and he's just like, he's on a date with Vicky Vale or something. He's like, I got to get out of here, but I can't because
I'm so conflicted.
Yeah. So, which is why it's just better for him to get married to Catwoman, which is something that's actually happened in the comic books. He's engaged to Catwoman.
Ooh, sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sexy. So, Bean Dude brought up a very good point that we haven't talked about in this episode yet, and that is who will run the shop if Funky Kong is a new mode and Funky doesn't run the shop in Funky mode. So, like, okay, so let's say it is a separate mode, like a new mode in Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, and you got Funky from the outset. Will Donkey Kong run the shop?
Ooh.
If Donkey Kong is kind of replaced in Funky mode, will Donkey Kong be forced to run the shop? That idea just came to me, but I thought that would actually be kind of amusing if that's the case. Bean Dude, I'm sorry. Until one of us has any creative sway over a Donkey Kong game, you will never see B-Locker again. I am sorry. Look, I want Bizarre Bear to run the shop in Funky's absence. That's not going to happen. I'm being realistic here. Look, what's probably going to happen is Funky will still run the shop, and Funky mode will probably be something you select from the map screen. But if they have to do anything, they're probably going to use a model that already exists in the game. Ergo, Donkey Kong would take his buddy's place and be a shopkeep for once. Malik, though, what are your thoughts on this? Because this is a very good question. This is like the first thing I think that a lot of us thought about. What about Funky's flying by?
So yeah, that was actually one of the first things I was thinking to myself, like, dude, who's gonna run the shop now that Funky is here? And we were thinking, just joking around, thinking it would be like one of the old characters, like Kiddy Kong, like all grown up or something, or Chunky, or Lanky even. But I figured that it would either be like a hologram, sort of like with Ungard in DKC1, or I just figured that Funky, the shop would be empty, and like if you were in single player, Funky would just like talk to himself and would be like, "Man, I better get some of my gear to help me out here," if he even needs the gear to begin with.
Well, that's a good point, because okay, in single player, if there are no Buddy Kongs, then you won't be able to buy those barrels from Funky. So, I mean, I imagine, like, you'd still have the ability to buy squawks and stuff, so... But the fundamental, like, nature of the shop would change if Funky mode is this whole, like, envelope that you put Tropical Freeze in, rather than a part, like, an option on the map screen. So... This is something I think everybody's going to be watching. I am well versed enough in retro and their philosophies that I'm not getting my hopes up about this whatsoever. Retro very much subscribes to the KISS philosophy: keep it simple, stupid. where DK Vine and Rare, we're very much in the boat, and Platonic now in the boat of, well, that's great, but we could probably get another character in there. Rare is always about how many characters can we logically squeeze into this. Retro is about, okay, how many characters can we cut from this? How many moves, abilities, and functions can we consolidate into a single character? So unfortunately, I'm not really looking to any grand debuts as the new shopkeeper. Now, progression-wise, it would be great to see. We had Cranky as the shopkeeper, we had Funky as the shopkeeper. Candy is really the next Kong you would go to be the shopkeeper. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see Candy come back and kind of redeemed. Candy gets shat upon almost as much as Kiddy Kong these days. And it's something we as the Donkey Kong fan base have kind of allowed to happen as kind of a compromise a little bit. It was like, okay, look, you've got to respect Diddy, Dixie, Funky, Cranky. You got to respect those characters. K-Rool, please respect them. Please treat them like the serious characters that they are. We will let you make fun of Kiddy and Candy Kong. Those are what you get. We won't complain about that. It's kind of a Faustian bargain we made a while back, probably around the time of Returns. I do kind of think both characters should be salvaged. There's inherently nothing wrong with those characters.
Yeah.
Candy's design is off-putting, and yeah, she was created to be a joke character, a buxom Marilyn Monroe type who's a gorilla.
I've seen weirder,
but I've seen weirder in the DKU. I think Candy could be salvaged into something else, and I think you could make her character work. And I would like to see her brought back. I want to see everybody brought back. Yeah. I mean, I'm the guy who's advocating for Bizarre Bear to come back, so I literally want to see every character on the table again. And if this is Retro's final dalliance with Donkey Kong, then it would be great if they could give us a parting gift in the form of a new shopkeeper. But all I've got to say is, do not get your hopes up.
Well, I guess I won't, but it would be really cool. It would be kind of funny if it was just empty and Funky was like, I better take some of my stuff, and since it's Funky mode, he doesn't have to pay. Yeah. So in the live stream, we've got some opinions here. Originally, DJ Dustin, amazing
DJ Dustin, he of the Funky in the Birth Canal meme, said it should be K. Rool in a gorilla suit running the shop, which was the idea we had for the fourth playable Kong. When we knew there was a fourth playable Kong in Tropical Freeze, but before we knew it was Cranky, one of the very popular fan theories was, what if it is K. Rool disguised as a Kong? Which would have been great, but it would have also kind of lessened K. Rool's impact as a villain. It would have kind of had the same problem Bowser has, where you start to kind of turn him into a self-parody who's non-threatening if he can just team up with the characters.
Yeah.
Q-Burn said, I love Lanky, and honestly, I would love Lanky too. Lanky, as much as I love Funky Mode, and as much as I love all this attention Funky's getting, honestly, if I had a gun to my head, if I had a coconut gun to my head, or a peanut pop gun, or a
grape shooter,
bubble gumball pop gun, grape shooter,
Lanky's weapon,
to be more appropriate. Yes, to be more appropriate to the character at hand. If I had a grape pea shooter to my head, I would probably say, if I had to choose ahead of time before they announced anything, I would have chosen Lanky as the playable character. Because I think Lanky, out of the DK64 trio, through sheer force of memery, he is the Kong who is best loved today. And he's also the Kong, I feel like he's unique enough that he's not taking away from any other Kong. He's a
completely different species.
He's an orangutan. He's got name recognition. And I feel like Lanky would have been a perfectly valid choice had Retro wanted to bring him back. So, yeah. I don't want Lanky running the shop, though. I want Lanky to come back as a playable character. And that's the deal. I see Amazing DJ Dustin clarified his K. Rool comment and said the Kongs wouldn't know it's K. Rool. They would unknowingly fund his big comeback. So you would be financing K. Rool, and then K. Rool could then in turn use those funds for the next adventure, retaliate against the Kongs. That is actually a brilliant idea. Now I want K. Rool running the shop. You've sold me. Mamechi said Professor Chops. And Dustin said he'd be fine with Professor Chops if it gave him more of a personality with dialogue. Yeah, I could see that. I think Professor Chops is always just the disappointing solution in these terms. Like, yeah, I want Professor Chops to be established more, but do we want to do that, or do we want to bring back an old character who hasn't been seen in years?
Yeah, I mean, we gave him a name, for goodness sakes. What more do you want with this pig?
Q-Burn, upon the notion where it would be Funky running the shop, and Funky as a playable character, says it would be a Luigi meets Luigi in Galaxy situation, which in that case, Funky cloned himself? I don't really know how we would rationalize that.
He just got high. Again, he just sees himself there.
He just sees himself,
like,
yeah. Or it's
me.
Or it's a hologram, yeah. Anyway, all right. Thanks for the input, guys. All right, let's take the next call, please. Please to myself. I'm asking myself, pretty please, Hyle, will you play the next call?
Hello, DK Jungle Vine presents the one and lonely, The Conversation. Second time caller, proud winner of a Mr. Mooney Award here. And this may earn me another, but I have a confession. I didn't buy a Wii U. Hear me out. I owned every Nintendo system, the Nintendo 64 being the most near and dear to my heart, which I still play. I finally bought Tetrisphere, and boy, does it feel good to Tetris in 3D. I was on the fence about a Wii U, and when I saw that Tropical Freeze was coming out in February of 2014, I knew it was a must-buy. But only if, and this was important to me, Smash Brothers had to stick the landing at the end of 2014 for me to pick up a Wii U. How could Smash 4 stick the landing, you're asking? Simple, really. First, maybe call the game an actual name instead of Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U and 3DS, like maybe Super Smash Brothers 4, or Super Smash Brothers Punch Kick, or Super Smash Brothers New, Or Super Smash Bros. The number 4 Wii U. This is, of course, Nintendo of America's fault, as they are the worst at localizing names for games. This is the reason I hate the new Super Mario series. We now have a game that's 12 years old with new in the title. Yuck. The other thing was to have any other DKU character in the freaking game. It's not hard. If Rob the Robot and Mr. Game & Watch and the laughing fucking Duck Hunt Duck Dog are in the game, then Dixie Kong, K. Rool, or, I'm even just saying or, Cranky better be in the game. So Nintendo's shitty naming of things and no DKU characters in Smash had me boycott Nintendo with my wallet. Just like I boycotted Kevin Spacey by never watching House of Cards. I boycott Kevin Spacey's Boys and Cots. Point being, damn it, Nintendo, you could have sold me a Wii U, but instead of making Smash 4, you made super new Fire Emblem Fighters for the Wii U and 2DS. So I've skipped the Wii U generation, and I've stuck to my 360 and regular Wii. Now that they have announced Tropical Freeze for the Switch, I plan on getting the Switch on May the 4th. May the 4th be with all of us, so I can play Yooka-Laylee and Donkey Kong Country 5, Tropical Freeze, all on one system, on a bus, or in a bar, or in Kevin Spacey's car.
Well, I recognize the caller. He's definitely called before. He never gives us his name, so I feel like I have to give him a name. And so, based on his call, from now on, you are Kaiser Soze. Thank you for the call, Kaiser. This is a person who didn't buy a Wii U. Granted, he blamed Smash Brothers 4 for that. It was a hilarious rant. But it's interesting that this is a person who would have been Tropical Freeze's target audience, Kaiser Soze. But he didn't buy a Wii U because there just wasn't enough to justify buying a Wii U for. And I feel like talking about Smash 4, he says like Smash 4 was the breaking point, the point of no return. Like, I am not getting a Wii U. And yeah, I really do feel like that was the point, that it felt like the wind had been let out of the Wii U sales, and they were never going to inflate again. They were never going to, I'm sorry, I'm saving all of my boating analogies for our Sea of Thieves episodes. I can't really muster it right now.
It's all right.
I know Smash 4 has its defenders and its fans, but I don't know. I personally felt like, and not just from my perspective, but just from getting a read on the perspective of the greater gaming culture, that once Smash 4 came out for the Wii U, it was all downhill after that.
Yep.
And there was really like people just giving up on the Wii U at that point. It was just like, okay, Zelda's probably not going to be coming out until the next console. And it's over. It is over. And it pretty much was. And that is just weird.
That's what I said. Because, Smash is like the big one. I mean, there was Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. And I said to myself when they came out, if these don't sell the Wii U, if we don't see like numbers from this, nothing can save it. And I was right.
And granted, Nintendo did prolong like the Smash 4 hype through the DLC and the Smash ballot, and boy, did that piss everybody off at the end of the day. So I think it was just,
or at the end of the day, Anetta. This for the Rayman joke earlier. I got one in.
Okay. I really do feel like a lot of unfair pressure and like responsibility was put on Sakurai's shoulders, whether he realized it or not. And because he inadvertently dropped the ball in some ways with Smash 4.
That's because his one hand wasn't working, so he couldn't hold it.
Oh, that's terrible carpal tunnel joke out of nowhere. That was his problem, right? Carpal tunnel?
No, it wasn't carpal tunnel. It was something else that I can't pronounce.
He was clutching his sword too tight.
Something.
Yeah, I don't know. Some Sakurai joke. It's been a while.
He got better.
I'm rusty. Good. So anyway, it really did feel like Smash 4 just alienated more people than it won people over, and you're never going to make a Melee again at this point, or at least Sakurai's never going to make another Melee, and you're never going to make a Smash game that pleases all of these disparate fan bases, so yeah okay. So anyway, thanks for the call. Thanks for the call, Kaiser. You never suspect Kaiser Soze. All right, let's hear what the next caller has to say.
Oh yeah.
Good day, lads. Scrap69 here, Hyle the TheCartoonGamer. Been a while since I called, but I wanted to call about the Funky Kong review. All I just want to say about Funky Kong is that bloody hell, he makes Donkey Kong look like nothing, eh? No wonder Candy Kong went for his banana instead of Donkey Kong's. I mean, Funky Kong is now an arms dealer, a shopkeeper, hoverboard creator. I mean, he does everything. So, like, yeah, pretty amazing. So I'm looking forward to the speed runs. But I just want to wonder, what do you reckon? Do you reckon Funky Kong will be able to collect all the puzzle pieces, all the Kong letters, and everything else that all the other Kongs can do? Because I know that Cranky can only get one puzzle piece because he can do the pogo jump. And who's the other lad? Dixie Kong can get through some turbulence underwater. So what do you lads reckon? Have a good one, lads. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Bye.
Thank you for the call, Scraps. And for more on Scraps, as well as our own Nick Prohl, check out the recent video on our YouTube channel, where the two cross paths in real life.
That was really touching.
Sexy results. Yeah, in more than one way,
in more than one way, am I right, lads?
All right. So, Scraps brings up a couple good points here. And yeah, to answer his last question, I do think Funky will be able to get it all. He's specifically designed to be the only Kong you need. Love is all you need, says the Beatles. Funky is all you need, says Retro Studios. And that means he's not a Super Kong. He is just an easier Kong option for players, but you're still going to be able to get the entirety of the game. I don't know if, like, percentage-wise you'll be able to get, like, 102% or whatever, or if, like, it's going to be, like, you can only get that by playing the legit True Blue original mode, but I think as far as the actual game, yeah, it's all going to be designed so Funky can get it. And I think, people say, well, Retro is half-assing this port, but imagine the time it takes to implement an entirely new character and figure out, can this character do everything in this game and go, so that's my thought on the matter. Malik, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see why Funky wouldn't be able to get it all. I thought everybody was able to get it all, right? You can play the game with any Kong and get all the puzzle pieces?
You can, I think, yeah. I mean, there are ones that are, like, specifically designed, like, Cranky has to bounce on his cane to get, but I think there are always workarounds to get to those.
Yeah, like just taking a hit.
Yeah, but the fact is, like, you don't have to get all the puzzle pieces. Like, when you're going back through playing as just, like, say, Diddy or Dixie or Cranky, you don't have to get those puzzle pieces. If you get those, I think, just in normal mode, they count. It's only, like, the Kong letters that change, like, color or whatever.
I always called them the Shadow Kong letters. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's about on par with me calling the Adventure 2 balloons in Diddy Kong Racing the plasma balloons. Like, what? Funky Kong is actually, really, the most amazing Kong. The most amazing Kong that's ever been. Ever.
On any platform. Portable or otherwise.
I don't know why I just fused Donald Trump with Craig Duncan. I apologize to Craig Duncan. Do the political opinions of DK Vine in no way reflect. But yeah, Funky is really like the most impressive Kong when you actually look at the canonicity of the series. So think back to our Funky Kong character witness episode back season 4, episode 20 of the Kongversation. So Funky, he started his career as a surf bum, but he opened a fishing boat rental joint. That's how Funky Kong got his start.
Right.
From there, he turned that into a makeshift airline, which quickly expanded all around Donkey Kong Island. And then he opened a second chain on Crocodile Isle with Funky's Flights 2, where he developed experimental aircraft like a gyrocopter. All right, so
it takes some.
He also developed.
I was gonna say it takes guts to do that in enemy territory too.
He's an entrepreneur, man. Like he doesn't discriminate. Like I would imagine Funky Kong does not discriminate against the Kremlins. Like if the Kremlins are cool with him, he's cool with them.
Maybe they just don't know where he is, because I thought they'd just kill him on sight.
I think it's just you just don't want to like walk into these makeshift Kong camps because it just the Kremlins don't have the fortitude for that.
That's true. Jump on the head, dead.
Plus, I imagine like if there was a Kremlin raid, they just have locks on their doors and windows, and it's like unlike Donkey Kong's treehouse, which has no door that locks, like the Monkey Museum, Kong College, Funky's Flights 2, Swanky's Bonus Bonanza. Yeah, they're actually secure buildings, so nobody's getting kidnapped there. So, yeah, he developed teleportation technology. He started a boat rental shop in the Northern Hemisphere, which admittedly is less impressive than teleportation technology, but I'm just going in relative chronological order here. He opened a chain of casinos with Bizarre Bear. Shout out to the Sheepy Shop. He developed non-lethal weaponry that, nonetheless, still hurts.
Oh yeah, if it shoots you.
Yes. He found a way to have traditional retail compete with the likes of Amazon by taking the shop to you with the fly-in buy.
Pretty good.
And now he's using his own hoverboard technology so he can do the same adventure as the other Kongs, but with half the effort. Funky Kong is OP, Malik. He is overpowered.
That is A-OK.
But really, like, he is an amazing... He's the man of the year, man. He is Kong of the millennium. Like, he makes the other Kongs look like jokes.
Because they don't work.
And
well.
yeah, if I was Candy Kong... Look, Donkey Kong's been dating me for over 20 years. He still hasn't committed to this relationship. I'd be looking at Funky Kong, this very, very successful guy right over here, who's kind, compassionate, chill, ultra successful, very resourceful, and I'd be saying, this is the man I want to be with. Like, I've wasted enough time with Donkey Kong.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, we have another call. Let's take it.
Alrighty.
Hey, it's, me, Tony. Your favorite person ever. The best person, you can call me. Now, Hyle, you're forced to get a Nintendo Switch now. How does this make you feel? That just because they released Tropical Freeze on Nintendo Switch, you have to have the Nintendo Switch by May. Isn't that great? You're going to have to now. It's forced. It's law. And you got to finish Donkey Kong 2, by the way, because I need to see you play Tropical Freeze and compare it to Tropical Freeze new funky mode. And you're going to have to do everything. You have to do everything in Tropical Freeze. And then you have to do everything in the new Tropical Freeze. So how does that make you feel as well? Because I know that you're still OCD like crazy. That you're going to have to do it. So that's very fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing you suffer. Another thing, Hyle, so Funky Kong's in the game. I think that's cool. So it's playable as a easy mode basically, which is, cool and all. Now, here's my question. If we get a new Donkey Kong 3D platformer, do you think it should be like Super Mario 3D World? So then, it would be 5 characters like in that game. Because the 5 characters in 3D World were Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, and a secret one, which was Rosalina. So, in this Donkey Kong 3D platform, that could be Donkey Kong, Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, and Funky. So see, it's perfect. Maybe we will get a 3D platformer this E3. Anyway, I have a more serious question. Announced today, all of a sudden, was Nintendo Labo. I don't know what it's called, but it's some cardboard creator thing. Are you going to buy every single set of this? Because I know you, as a huge Nintendo fan, will buy everything. Well, you won't, but what if Rare made it? Would you have bought every single set of Labo? I think you would. Anyway, more to Disneyland. What do you guys want? You guys want any souvenirs? Donkey Kong is really cool, you know. I'm really happy to see him again. Anyway, one last question. Very last question. What do you think about Retro slowly bringing in new, or rather old Donkey Kong characters into the mix? Slowly bringing back more of the old line. Everybody, I love you guys.
Okay. I'm not sure what Mamechi was actually trying to ask at the end. He kind of just drifted off into nothingness. So
a little bit, maybe just a little bit.
Presumably, someone obviously traveled back to the past and prevented Mamechi's parents from ever falling in love, erasing him from the timeline. So, before we forget Mamechi ourselves, we better answer his other points. Well, okay, starters, I am not being forced to buy a Nintendo Switch. This isn't like, I don't know, Michael Kelbow is coming to my home with a gun and saying, it's now or never, Hyle. It's now or never. Okay, if there are things for the Switch that interest me enough, then that's an investment worth making. I have not gotten a Switch up until this point because I did not feel like there was any reason for me personally to own one. I didn't have a reason that would warrant it. As interesting as Breath of the Wild, as fun as Super Mario Odyssey look, I don't need to play them right in the here and now. So, yeah. But it's not forcing me to buy. I'm going to get one, obviously. I want to now. It's not like my teeth getting pulled or anything. It's not like being in the dentist chair and playing something that's not Ultra Smash and not falling asleep. So Donkey Kong 3D platformer. Mechi broached this. So he brought up the Super Mario 3D World game with 5 characters, and he said, hey, we've got 5 playable Donkey Kong Country characters in this modern era of Donkey Kong now. So do you think this is the lineup we're going to have? And I would say, if Retro was doing it, then yes, yeah. Absolutely. But, like I said, I hope this doesn't exclude the possibility of somebody like Lanky coming back. Because, I don't want to get locked into, this is the Kongcast we can use. We cannot use characters that predate this time period, because that is, I feel like we've already crossed that threshold twice now. When the Payon era started, any characters that Payon did not have a hand in redesigning, we have not seen since. So Chunky Kong did not get redesigned, so we haven't seen Chunky Kong. Swanky Kong did not get redesigned. We have not seen Swanky. Kitty, we have not seen Kitty. So, and then when Retro took over, it's kind of been the same thing. So I don't want to get to that point where we can never revive a past character because the current team handling Donkey Kong has not done a new model for them, and they don't really have any plans for them, so we're just never going to see them until somebody else gets their hands on Donkey Kong. I don't like that, and I feel like it limits what you can do with the universe and the amazing, wide, ridiculous cast of characters that's available to Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, sure, why not? Funky, yeah, 3D platformer, absolutely. Now, Malik, I was preparing for this episode when they announced the Nintendo Labo. Labo Destroyo. What? I know it's like it's software for the Switch, and you get these cardboard corrugated things that you put together, and then you can interact with the software in the Switch and do things with. Am I understanding that correctly, or did I just completely misread the situation?
Now, I've only seen the trailer once, and it was like 5 minutes before we started recording, so I didn't really,
all right.
really suck it all in. But I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, you get some cardboard, and you can do some things. It's like virtual reality. You put the who's and what's it on the booth.
I mean, look,
I think that's it.
I don't want to be a cynical dick because of that. I'm past that point in my life, but I've got to throw in some cynicism every now and then. This feels like, to me, one of Nintendo's many, many gimmicks that they've come up with over the years. That sounds great on paper, and you get really excited about before it comes out, and then it comes out, and then everybody just kind of forgets about it, and then it's just one of those, like, forgotten peripheral things that, oh yeah, that was a thing. It's collecting dust in somebody's attic now.
Like me, Tomo.
What really makes me, like, honestly, I'm amazed Amiibo haven't gotten there yet. I feel like they're almost there. They're on the precipice of falling into that, but they've lasted so much longer.
Oh no, me Tomo, not Amiibo.
No. I was just continuing, like, train of thought here, like Amiibo, e-reader cards, and even just like peripherals like the DK bongos, or just stuff that
the vitality sensor. Pizza Party says.
Yeah. Even going back to the NES era with the power pad, like I had a power pad. Like Nintendo got lucky with the Zapper gun, and I think ever since then they've been looking for ways to augment the traditional experience. And unfortunately, the Zapper gun was, no pun intended, a flash in the pan as far as terms of how successful Nintendo could be with peripherals. They've never really struck gold quite on that level since, unless you want to say something like the Pro Controller is a peripheral, which I guess in a sense it is. But no, I'm kind of raising an eyebrow about this. Yes, it looks cool, and yes, it'll appeal to the DIY kind of contingent. But at the same time, this is cheap cardboard. And as somebody who worked his fair share of retail jobs over the years, I am somebody who has very, very painful memories of trying to put together cardboard displays and getting frustrated at the inanity of poorly designed constructs that don't really fit well, and when you try to put together, you accidentally fold or bend the tabs you need to insert into the tab, so then the hold isn't as strong as it should be, and the whole thing degrades under its own weight over time. I trust Nintendo as far as quality control goes, but it's still cardboard, and it's going to get wet. Things are going to get spilled on it, and then it's going to be priced. I think I saw $70 quoted for the initial starter set.
$70.
Yeah. So look, Mamechi, if there's anything Donkey Kong related to the Labo, I'll buy it. But otherwise, I'm probably not going to engage. Like e-reader cards. I did buy my fair share of e-reader cards, especially like the NES games that you could just like swipe into the e-reader and then you could play the NES game. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. It's still really cool. It's like just like very early like scanning technology that we take for granted nowadays. But just like data encoded in these little scannable strips. Like it was incredible. And that was like before, QR codes and everything. But really, like the only e-reader thing that has really stuck with me is the Mario Party e-deck. and because Donkey Kong was in that, it's Donkey Kong universe. The only amiibos I seek out are those that are related to the Donkey Kong universe. So same thing with Labo. If there's something Donkey Kong related, if I can like fold cardboard and then have the sculpt of Donkey Kong's buttocks on my own, then we're in business, Nintendo. But really, it's like me and the Switch. I have no reason to invest in the Nintendo Labo at this point. Maybe I'm being cynical. And thanks for the call, Mamechi.
Thank you, Mamechi.
Enjoy Disneyland as usual. Can't believe you're getting to Disneyland. It's so unlike you.
Get me a goofy hat.
Or goofy buttocks. All right.
Gorge.
Final call, Malik.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Kongversation, it's me again. I was just calling to find out what your opinion is about the fact that the new Tropical Freeze for Nintendo Switch is apparently going to be about $60 according to the internet. If that's accurate, do you think that hints at new content like in Donkey Kong Country 3D for the Nintendo 3DS? Or is Nintendo just thinking, now that the system isn't a colossal failure, maybe we could just get people to pay more money for our games? Anyway, that's all. Bye.
Well, thank you for the call. Well, okay, so $59.99 is the price that Tropical Freeze for the Switch is being listed as.
Yeah.
And, that is really seems to be the go-to price for most Switch games, especially the Nintendo games, first-party Nintendo games. Wii U port be damned. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe also going for that price. Granted, Mario Kart 8 added a little bit, but, I think maybe we're selling Funky Mode short just a bit. Funky Mode is the new content that you're paying for, and it's actually a pretty impressive feat that you're able to play the entire game with this completely different character that was not designed for the original game. So yeah, I know everybody wants new levels, new world, and something else besides Funky Mode, but I think this is what you're gonna get. And I think they're just counting on the fact that it's a stellar game that just didn't sell as well as it should have the first time. I think Nintendo recognizes that internally. There was a lot of fear when Tropical Freeze, it didn't bomb, but it didn't live up to expectations. And I think there was a lot of fear among the fan base that Nintendo is going to blame Donkey Kong. We're not going to be getting Donkey Kong stuff from here on out. And we don't have to worry about that. Believe me, we don't have to worry about that because, one, they wouldn't be doing this if that was the case. Two, we would not be getting Donkey Kong DLC in Mario plus Rabbids. We wouldn't be getting this new push for Donkey Kong as its own IP that can stand on its own two legs without the Mario branding to support it. We wouldn't be getting all of this if Nintendo didn't have faith in Donkey Kong and didn't have a plan for Donkey Kong. So, yeah, I think it's pretty transparent. We're getting Funky Mode in the new Tropical Freeze, and that's going to be $60. So pay up, fanboys.
That's like $80 Canadian. That's why I haven't gotten a Switch yet. It's just too much.
Oh, man.
Holy
heck. I know. I remember as a kid always looking at like the Canadian prices on things because they'd always list the U.S. price and the Canadian price. And I'd always be thinking, wow, I'm glad I'm not Canadian. Not really understanding how things like, inflation and the value of the dollar, how that stuff really works.
Yeah,
but,
it was the reverse up here. Like looking in Scholastic. It's like, man, those Americans get this for like $5 less.
And then I remember like really when the economy was booming, how the value of the dollar was so much more than the Canadian dollar that people were going north of the border and just buying all this high-end electronics. I remember seeing like news stories about that, and that was before like our various recessions since then. All right, well, Malik.
Yep.
Yes, I'm going to get a Switch. I'm going to get a Switch. Between this, Yooka-Laylee, and the DLC for Mario plus Rabbids, I don't just need to get a Switch. I actively want one now. There is enough for the Switch that I could have a grand old time until my dying days with just those 3 titles alone, let alone your Breath of the Wilds, your Mario Odysseys. So yeah, a Switch is a must-own for me now. The Switch has gone off in my head.
Oh, you've been waiting for that one, I can tell.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but like for the last couple Nintendo generations, I've waited to adopt the console when they've announced the big Donkey Kong release, or a big Donkey Kong release. It was Tropical Freeze for the Wii U, and it was Returns for the Wii. I did not get a Wii until 2010, so...
I mean, yeah, it kind of goes the same for me up until, like, every time I buy a console, I always know that I'm not going to start getting games until they announce the Donkey Kong thing. And as soon as they announce the Switch thing, it's like, well, guess we gotta get a Switch in the near future now. I mean, I could wait on Odyssey,
for me,
but Donkey Kong.
Yes, to further illustrate Mamechi's point, I am a completionist. So yes, I've got to get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I've got to get all these, appearances of Donkey Kong. But those aren't system sellers for me anymore because I'm so far behind in my chronological playthrough of all of the Donkey Kong Universe games that I know I'm not going to be playing them anytime soon, so there's no rush. Whereas if a Donkey Kong game comes out, or something pretty massive like the Mario plus Rabbids DLC, then I know that's got to be something I've got to play day one. So, same reason I got an Xbox One when Conker's Big Reunion was announced. And I don't regret that, by the way. Conker's Big Reunion, fantastic tribute to Conker. I love it. But I got a GameCube on launch, and I think I regretted that, even though I was still pretty much caught up in my... I was still, like, on the level of the chronological playthrough then, but it was, like, a year before Star Fox Adventures came out, which would have been the system seller in, modern times for me. But anyway. So, one last check-in with the live stream before we wrap up. Mamechi was asking... Before we sadly lost him from the time stream, Mamechi was asking apparently about if we think we'll get new old characters in Donkey Kong Country Returns 3. And well, that depends, Mamechi. Are we going to get Donkey Kong Country Returns 3? Is the retro trilogy going to be wrapped up next? Is this an omen of things to come, or is Donkey Kong going to go in a completely different direction? So, a little bit of historical perspective. 2013, they announced Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D in the winter in a random Nintendo Direct. Then that E3, they announced Tropical Freeze. Obviously, that rollout didn't go exactly as Nintendo and Retro had hoped, but that was kind of the plan. Get people jazzed up about the last Donkey Kong game again. It's been a few years. And then wow them with Tropical Freeze. Oh, you just finished Returns 3D? Here's a new console Donkey Kong Country game. So I think that was the plan, and in any other circumstance, I think that plan would have went well. So... all right, it's time I kind of come clean about something. All right, so now this is going to seem like me saying, "Oh, I have all this insider info. I know things." La da 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 do dee 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 la da 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 do. But I'm not doing that. This is just me trying to be as upfront as possible with what I know and what I am allowed to say. Or what I've been allowed to say, which up until this point has been nothing. So, I was actually tipped off that Tropical Freeze for the Switch was a certainty, that it was coming. I've known about this for a while now, and I've had to play dumb. And I'm sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't know any of the finer details. I didn't know that Funky was playable, but I heard from sources that... multiple sources from this one, that things were on their way. So I've also been tipped off, and that this is just phase 1.
Really?
And I don't know anything else, so do not call, do not write. I literally do not know what's coming. But when we're talking about the future of Donkey Kong, I know that Nintendo has more planned than just Tropical Freeze for the Switch.
Oh.
I don't know if that means a new platformer. I don't know if that means anything from Retro. It could mean a new developer. It could mean a 3D platformer. It could even mean, Donkey Kong Racing for all me. I do not know. But I know that this is all part of a master strategy from Nintendo higher-ups to reintroduce and strengthen the Donkey Kong IP. And this is apparently only the beginning of that.
Right.
So I think, Malik, I think we all know... I think we all know what that means.
Yeah, what is that, Hyle?
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.